Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to a brand new season. It's season 2 of the G-Force Sim Racing Series, the Hijinx Clothing Company Vintage Cup Series. We're getting ready here tonight for the first race of the year. We're at the high banks of Daytona International Speedway, getting ready for the Vintage 500 presented by Rich Marr Florists. 23 drivers ready to take to the track here today. We were here for the duels last week. Seth Cole alongside of Anthony McRae. So, Anthony, those duels were wild last week, but it's 200 laps here today these drivers have to pace themselves for. So, do we see anything from the duels in today's 500, at least early on, or do we see maybe a more unusual 500 where these drivers are going to try and have themselves in self-preservation?
Well, there's a long way to go, and these drivers know that these cars handle like crazy. These cars will go sideways through the turns at over 190, almost 200 miles an hour. These drivers are going to have to hold on to their cars for 200 laps, and we've talked to some of the guys after the end of the dual races. They were tired, physically and mentally tired. They couldn't possibly have gone longer the way they were racing without having some physical strain. So these drivers have to pace themselves tonight. Can't go the full 200 racing like the duels, but for the first 10 laps or so, there might be some guys fighting for position, trying to get up towards the front, because once you get there, it's pretty easy to defend.
Now, we know that at the super speedways, normally track position isn't all that important. We'll see if it'll be the case here today. Pole sitter is Christopher Morris Jr. He got the pole in pole day qualifying last week. Jeff Green was second fastest. They're the front row as they lead us to the green flag, and we are underway at Daytona.
Looks like those top two got a nice little jump at the start, and now it looks like that onto the outside, it's going to be Campbell looking at Morse. The outside line is about the fastest way you can go around this track. You can keep the wheel going forward more. You seem to slide less, and I think that we already have some drivers maybe spinning around back there, or maybe that was just sparks flying, but nope. Morse leads them out of two.
We indeed have a spin. It was Jason Hounshell in the 0-2. Brian Lutz in the 36, I think, came to a stop to avoid him. Caution is going to fly here as early as lap number 1, as Christopher Morse Jr. going to lead them back around here to the caution flag. So did not take long there at all. And one driver, I don't know if it was necessarily strategy or if it was just the fact that he just flat out missed the start, but Kyle Johnson started the race from pit road. So he was in probably the safest spot on the racetrack there on the first lap.
Yeah, he's trudging along right now in the 22nd position after everything gets settled out. Peyton Hamlet, I think, was another one of those drivers that were involved in the 91. He's certainly slow, might have just checked up. Some sparks flew, and we've got one driver on pit road as a result, and that's the 00 of Houndshell. So I want to think that he might have been at the center of all of this. Let's go back and take a look at a replay and see what happened, but it just coming through turn. Wow.
He just got flat out loose up there on that top side. Came down, I think he got the 4 of James Roth, and as you mentioned, Hamlet in the 91 indeed got damage as well on the right front. And, you know, if we know anything about super speedways, you want the front end of that car to be preserved because that's where the engine is housed. And these drivers, they may have 2 faster pairs to lean on, but they don't want to have to use one here, even in the first 5 laps. I don't think you'd want to use one in the first 100 laps, to be honest.
Certainly not, especially if it gets super racy later on in the second half of the race. You want to have that little bit of a mulligan to hold on to, that way that you can save it for go time. And I think another part of what happened with Houndshell is he tagged the wall. He got up the track and tagged the wall, and that's what brought him down the racetrack. So a little bit too high. These cars at the beginning of the race, the tires are cold, just trying to get them warmed up. You'll see some of these drivers maybe weaving down the straightaways during the pacing laps, trying to get some heat in the tires, and maybe the tires just a little bit too cold, too high up the racetrack. We've seen a lot of drivers, even in the dual races, they pushed up the racetrack quite a bit. It's a little abnormal to see it at the very start of the race, though.
Absolutely. Now, folks, if you're just tuning in and you have not seen the Vintage 87 series at Daytona, last week's duels, or the very first Daytona 500 that they ran last year, this is unlike any kind of Daytona 500 that you've ever seen. These drivers, for the most part, it's one of those types of races where it puts together super speedway and speedway type racing. The low spoiler on the back of these cars has them really loose going into the corner, which is why we saw that incident just moments ago with Jason Hounshell. And we're going to be giving you some onboards here today as well to be able to show you how these drivers have to work the hands, work the wheel. A lot of counter steering goes into play to be able to make it through these corners. It's scary to put these two words together in a sentence, Anthony, but in all honesty, what they're doing is they're dirt tracking at a super speedway.
Yeah, dirt tracking at well over 190 miles an hour with the way that these cars handle. Very low downforce and a lot of power. And when you add that combination to a track that, number one, this track is the legacy edition of Daytona, so it's still got the bumps into the turns right before they repaved it. So it's got that little bit of an element of surprise to the turns. You never quite know how the car is going to react lap through lap. So fresh, not really fresh paved, nice old pavement. Cars that handle like a beast. These cars, these drivers are going to have their hands full all night long, and these are some of the best drivers that I think that we've seen race in iRacing, period. Just the amount of work you have to do to get these cars wheeled around this racetrack it's really incredible.
Pit road was open that last time around. We did have quite a number of takers. James Roth and Peyton Hamlet, who we know got bits and pieces of that incident over in turns 1 and 2. They came down pit road. No fast repairs taken amongst either one of them. They came down and got what damage they manually could get repaired. So now they're just going to be, I think, for the most part, trying to survive to the second half when they might be able to use one of those 2 fast repairs to get up to speed. You saw leaving pit road was the 00 of Jason Hounshell. Now, he has scored 1 lap down, but able to continue on. The reason that he lost his lap is because he had to teleport back to pit road. And so all that time it took for that teleportation to be complete, he ended up losing a lap under caution. So as you saw at the top of the broadcast, when we were going to show you the starting lineup, there was no starting lineup. That was because the field was set according to where they were in the finishing results from last week's duels. Christopher Morse Jr. and Jeff Green, they were the fastest in pole day qualifying. Gerald Campbell, who started third but is now second, he was the winner of duel number 1. Blake Ripley, who right now has scored back in 6th, he was the winner of duel number 2. And I have to wonder, Gerald Campbell and Blake Ripley, they ended up winning their races under race conditions. Morse and Green obviously have fast race cars, but that wasn't under race conditions. That was out in single car qualifying. So does the 31 and the 21, do they have a little bit of an added edge to get themselves prepared for possible chaos in the closing stage of this race based on the fact that they've kind of been there, done that back in the 2 duels last week?
That's exactly what I think it is that these drivers know that their cars are going to be that fast during the race. These other drivers, Morse and Green, like you said, they were under qualifying conditions, so your qualifying set is going to be much different than your actual race trim as far as fuel weight, how your car's rev limiter is. It's going to be so much different as compared to when you get into the race, when you get into the draft around other drivers. We'll have to see as the race progresses, but we're back under Green, and it looks like that Morse is going to get another good jump off the restart. He's going to bring Campbell with him. And Green is actually going to go to the inside of Campbell. Green got an even better restart. It looks like Campbell might have missed a gear.
There's one thing that we've learned, though, from Jeff Green, not only here in this series and last year, and of course here during the Speed Weeks, but also back in the Grand National Series. He is one of those drivers that he is going to jump on you on restarts, up to the second position, and we're already 3 wide towards the back. It's a little risky back there, as I think that's Ryan Gavel in the 12 making that move. He put David White in the middle. Up top side was Blake Ripley, our Duel 2 winner.
Yeah, and they're shuffling at the front of the field as well. Morse has lost the lead. He's fallen back to 4th place. New leader is going to be Jeff Green with a big lead ahead of Bo Brady and Gerald Campbell. Campbell going all the way down to the yellow line with the 20. Looks like they're going to settle it back out. Now Green is under attack from Bo Brady. Does he go low? Does he go high into turn 1? Looks like he's going to slot right behind him too early. And I think there's a car on the wall back there. I think that's I believe that might be...
It's the 83, I think.
Couldn't quite tell who that was.
Might have possibly been the 83 of David White. I'm not certain. There was another car that was in the wall coming through the tri-oval, which I believe was the 88 of Kyle Johnson, but everybody keeps it straight. Is Bo Brady going to go to the front there in the 20 machine? He's going to try and see if he can lead a lap here today with Gerald Campbell and I believe that's Hank Steinmiller in tow. You talked about the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. kind of falling back. I think you're going to have different drivers with different agendas in this one. You're going to have drivers that are going to go up here, try and be up at the front, stay at the front, try to stay ahead of the chaos where the big one might occur. You're going to have other drivers, much like I think the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. is doing right now. He's going to try and fall back into a safe spot, try and stay away from everybody, all again in the case of trying to preserve his race car until the second half of this event.
Yeah, a long way to go. Only working lap 7 of 200. Not a bad strategy to go to the back of the field. Definitely have more time to avoid incidents that may happen as well. Another big thing that these drivers are going to have to pay attention to is tires, because we were speculating during the dual races. Tires seem to be the one thing that fell off the quickest. Fuel looks like they can be good on fuel for the run of a stint, but once you get into that window of your tires start falling off, the car becomes way harder to handle. So these pit stops might happen because they need tires rather than fuel. Look at the way that Campbell shoved his way to the inside of Brady, pushing the 20 out of the way, and now 31 back to the lead.
Riding on board here with Blaine Akin. There you see him have to counter steer it off the corner as the back end wanted to step out on him. Blaine Akin is the driver in the field here today that has the highest finishing result previously at Daytona, finishing in the 3rd position. The drivers that had the photo finish here last year, that being race winner Ashton Schleiss as well as Dallas Myhind, who came runner-up. Neither one of them are in the field here today. 6 drivers who finished in the top 10 here 1 year ago are in today's lineup.
We guaranteed a new race winner this year for season 2, so these drivers are gonna gun for it and hope that they can write their name in the history books and a crash at the front of the field. That's gonna have Green involved. It's gonna have Steinmiller involved. That's a big pile up on into turn number 1. Cars on their roofs, and that is the big one early.
Lake Ripley is the car that is up and on its roof. There you see the 81 of Shane Lake. Look at the smoke erupting from underneath the C2 Chevrolet of Jeff Green. He now tries to slowly leave the scene of the accident, and as you said, several drivers caught up in this one. I think the 16 of Anthony Guarneri, he was involved there. He is. Also, it looks like the 4 of James Roth, the 88 of Kyle Johnson. We may actually be able to list off quicker the drivers that weren't involved in the wreck rather than the drivers that were.
At least 10 drivers involved in turn 1. Shane Lake, another one of those drivers that has gotten some damage. So many drivers, in fact, that there's a plume of smoke going down the back straightaway just from the amount of engine damage that these drivers have sustained. They're still coming out of turn 2, going down the back straightaway. The 31 is trudging his way along the back straightaway. At the front of the field, it's going to be Jared Campbell, but that's about it. We have Bo Brady. Ryan Gavel is now going to be in the 3rd place position, and you're right, Seth. It is a little easier to count the drivers that weren't involved in that one. That happened right at the front of the field, and it happened, I think, because of a 3-wide situation. Jeff Green on the outside caused it.
Yep, you're absolutely right. 3-wide situation. Add a couple more drivers to the list that got involved. Randy Koking got a piece of it. It looks like Hank Steinmiller was in that 3-wide situation, was involved, and also the 36 of Ryan Lutz. Now, the camera angle we had there was a little bit difficult to see just exactly where the contact was, whether Steinmiller came up or possibly Jeff Green came down, not realizing he was in a 3-wide situation. It was Guarneri who was on the inside line of that 3-wide formation. We'll see if this camera angle gives us a little bit better of an idea. And Green got the wall. He got the wall there heading towards turn 1. He turned left to get off of the wall, and being on the top side of the 3-wide, when he turned left, he then came down into Guarneri.
Yeah,
make that Steinmiller.
Yeah, coming out of the tri-ovals when he got the wall, the car just seemed to track up towards the wall. It was really weird. It was almost like it was sucking the car up into the wall and then just fighting it to get off and then down into these other drivers. That's something that I don't think that we saw in the dual races at all, where the cars seem to want to go towards the wall, especially coming out of the tri-oval. I mean, going into the tri-oval, they want to track up the racetrack, but coming out, certainly not something that at least I foresaw was the thing that we'd have to watch out for. But so many drivers just not able to stop it. You can't really stop when you're going that fast, and you have to slam the brakes because you might end up causing more damage to yourself by doing that. But that's a very interesting way that car just pinged off the wall. It didn't seem like it didn't really ping. It just kind of got glued and then shot off the wall.
The thing I could possibly think of is when we had the onboard earlier with Blaine Akin, who we actually were on board when the incident occurred, so we saw everything that happened up in front of him. We know that the tri-oval is where the lightest area is for the race cars. It doesn't have as much load into it to be able to make that corner, and so you're constantly fighting the wheel. Could Jeff Green have possibly been putting so much counter steering into that car after that lightness off the tri-oval that it was just enough to put him into that outside wall, hence him having to try and turn left to come off of it and the contact to himself in the 63?
Yeah, if the weight comes back down onto the car at the exit, then if you're steering a little bit to the right, then your tires are pointing that direction. That's definitely not the way you want to be going. So these cars, without as much downforce as we see in the modern cars, it's so easy to do that. I think during the dual races that you touched on that going through the tri-oval, and you just touched on it now, the lightest part of the racetrack, these cars, because of the low downforce, there's not a whole lot you can do to counter that. You just kind of have to hold on to the car and hope for the best. And I guess the general rule of thumb is to point the car towards where you want to go, but even then, like we just saw, where he wanted to go was not the direction he ultimately wanted to go, but at the time that's where he needed to. But these cars, the so much power, and they're so light compared to the power that these cars put out, and like we said, low downforce. It makes for some fun racing, but these drivers have to work super hard to get their cars to go in the direction they want to.
Maybe trying to keep track here based on the fact that these drivers only have that 2 limited number of faster pairs available to them. We're going to try and keep track of the drivers that did indeed take on faster pairs and who did not, because that will be quite prevalent when we get closer to the end of this race. 3 drivers, 10 laps in, have already had to utilize a fast repair. There may actually have been a 4th. I'm going to try and confirm on that. But right now, the drivers that I know have used faster pairs at this point, Jeff Green, James Roth, and Anthony Guarneri. I mean, Anthony, there's still, what, over 180 laps to go. And you've only got one more shot of getting involved in a wreck until your day is basically over.
Yeah, there's a lot of drivers that opt to not use that fast repair, to have it later on when you can use it, when it might be more critical to use it. A lot of those drivers that are now a lap down are Hounshow, Guarneri, McLaren, Steinmiller, and Ripley are both. Oh, Steinmiller is now 1 lap down, and Blake Ripley is 2 laps down. So clearly, they want to have those fast repairs at the end of the race when they need it the most. Green flag back out in the air. Campbell will lead them down. Big jump away from Brady, but as we've seen throughout this race so far, the leader is not necessarily the safest place to be, as they're going to get freight trained in short succession. As here comes Brady already to the back end of Campbell, going through 1 and 2. It's going to bring a whole host of cars with him, including our pole sitter.
That's right, Christopher Morse Jr., P3 in the 3, Jake Hounshow right behind him. Hounshow was a driver that I mentioned of drivers that finished top 10 here a year ago. He finished 7th here last year, right now in that 4th position, as you saw a couple of drivers down there on the apron on the back straightaway. Now, they're not having any issue. These are drivers that are not feeling comfortable being up here towards the front. They're dropping down below the yellow line, not advancing their position, dropping towards the rear of the field to where they feel is the safe spot.
Yeah, and the safe spot would be running by yourself at this point in time, because you have to go the full distance. Now, once they get into 25 laps to go, we can expect to see what we saw in the duels, because that is the kind of racing that the duels produce. But you got to get to that point, and I think now these drivers are, it's freshly ingrained in their minds that if you race like you did in the duels this early on in the race, then there are some severe consequences. We saw nearly half the field, if not more than half the field, caught up in that last incident, and we're only on lap 14. You have over 180 laps to go. Got to get to the end. So still some hard racing going on, as you see for 3rd place back there between Gavel and Morse. That side-by-side battle happening. But if you look behind them and in front of them, the train racing, running by themselves, trying to get as much gap between the guy in the front and the guy behind them. Just kind of run their race. Run it out. You're going to have another caution for sure. You just got to make it to the end of the race.
You know, obviously at the start of the season, the adrenaline is high. As a racer, there's a car in front of you. You want to pass it. You want to be that lead car. But a lot of times at the super speedways, it takes a big one. It takes a big wreck to kind of knock some sense into the drivers and say, hey, it's too early to be doing this. We still got a long ways to go.
Yeah, and they're starting to pack up towards the front again. So these drivers really do want to race. Now, there is some incentive for these drivers to be at the front of the field, because if you are able to lead lap 100, if you win the race and lead lap 100, you're getting extra bonus money towards your purse at the end of the race. So there are some incentives for these drivers to want to do that. But still, even at a lap 100, we're still way off lap 100, as we're only working 16 right now. To the lead goes Gavel for a brief moment, and if I'm not mistaken, that 12 car's got some rear end damage, so it might not be that difficult for some of these drivers, if they have a little bit of damage, to stay competitive.
Yeah, looks like he may have some damage towards the right rear of that Pennzoil machine, as now Christopher Morris moves down to work with Gerald Campbell. And further back here, in what was a battle for fourth, but now has exchanged hands. You got Blaine Atkin. He's moved into that fourth position, and right behind him, that's the guy that started this race from pit road, the 88 of Kyle Johnson. So maybe starting on pit lane wasn't that bad a strategy. He's been able to work his way through the mayhem of the first 15 laps, now finds himself solidly in the top 5.
Yeah, and battling for the fourth place position out to the outside of Blaine Atkin. Blaine Atkin's one of those drivers that we were focused on during the dual races just for the amount of times his car was sideways. It looks like his car might be set up a little bit more different this time, or else he's just backing off because his car is significantly less sideways as it was during the duels. As I say that, he goes to the outside of Morse, trying to make a move to the third place position. It's actually right on the back end of Gavel. You got to be careful. Don't want to get into the back end of any car in front, but so far so good as they're still racing hard at the front of the field. And I'm impressed with that 88 machine of Johnson. He's been able to stay up here with these guys. That car definitely a fast contender for this race.
And you talked about the fact this is the Legacy Daytona. You saw with that onboard with Blaine Atkin, just the bumps these drivers are having to deal with on the straightaways, through the corners. You saw sparks kind of coming off from the underneath of the 31 of Gerald Campbell as that car kind of loaded on corner exit. And now looks like we got a couple of drivers that are starting to fade to the back there. I think that was Christopher Morse Jr. as well as, that might have been the 16, but no, I think it was the 19 actually of Randy Koking, both dropping towards the back, trying to find themselves a safe place to race. As now looks like the battle's going to be up around the 5th position. That's where you find Jeff Green, Jake Hounshell, as well as a couple of lap machines intermingled here too. You've got the 00 of Jason Hounshell in between those two lead lap cars, I should say.
Yeah, and they've made their way up, trying to get their laps back. There are no waiver rounds in this race, so if you're going to get your lap...
Oh, man, we got contact for the lead. Sorry to cut you off. Gavel pushed up into Campbell, and we nearly had another wreck at the front of the field.
Yeah, they're side by side up there, basically pushing each other. It is the 44 is pushing the 12 down the back straightaway, and that's something that you don't want to do in these cars, especially in Gavel's case with that little bit of rear end damage. We're not really sure what the state of the aero on that car is, so he's definitely not wanting that to happen. And Atkin is sideways out of turn 4 again.
Saw that a lot in the duels with drivers trying to use the inside line and just getting loose off of turn 4. Gavel lost some momentum. Campbell's going to try and use a car as a pick there. Can't tell who exactly that is. Is that possibly the 91 of Peyton Hamlet that he was able to use to get around for the race lead?
Yeah, Peyton Hamlet, I don't think has used a fast repair. He's still running around with quite a bit of damage on that 91. So trying to see how this race plays out and use them later on, but it's hurting him at the moment as he's going to go a lap down again. I think he's now going to be 2 laps down, that 91 is. So going to join Blake Ripley in the 2 lap down club. But as I was saying about the lap down cars is that there are no waiver rounds. So these drivers have to get back to the lead lap on the racetrack. Hope that a caution comes out so they can get back on the lead lap. The way that these drivers are racing, though, if they can get to the front, that might not be so unrealistic as we're still sideways at the front of the field. As the tires start to wear down, these cars are going to go more and more sideways as the battle for the lead continues to ensue as Campbell's got to hold off not only Gavel, but now Johnson on the inside.
You've got 6 lead lap cars in this group. You've also got the 00 of Jason Hounshell, and what he's doing is he's hoping for a caution to come out because right now we got 6 cars off the lead lap, 5 of them -1, and Hounshell, you mentioned no waiver rounds, but there is a lucky dog, so if the caution were to come out, 00 would be in the free pass position.
Yeah, and that is crucial for him. He needs to stay up there if he wants to get that lap back. And there's a car in the wall. That looks like the 12 that scraped the wall as the car just came back into view. I think that was one of the lap cars. I think it was the 88.
You're right. Yep. Second place of Kyle Johnson was the one that disappeared. I don't know if Gavel got up into the wall in reaction to the fact that Johnson disappeared or if he just got tight coming off of the corner, but you could clearly see a lot more rear end damage to that car now as I think he didn't just brush the wall. I think he clobbered the wall off of turn 4.
Yeah, he definitely had a bit of a sudden movement trying to get around the 88, and that's just something that's a product of iRacing. You just have to be careful when that happens. Connection might be bad between drivers, and it's just sim racing in general. That's something that these drivers have to deal with, that, you know, it's a factor. That could cause a big wreck. Oh, there's the wall. The 31 gets into the wall this time.
We were right on board with him, saw him get the wall off that corner as Jeff Green was hounding him for position, and now Kyle Johnson up the middle looking 3 wide there with the lap machine of Guarneri as well as the 12 of Ryan Gavel.
I'll tell you what, that was a good bit of driving to get that 88 going the right way he needed to go, and goodness me, he almost came up into the 12, but was able to get it going in the right direction. Single file down the back straightaway. Whoa, I think we can calm down a little bit now. That was, whew, good lord.
Now, trying to figure out why these drivers are brushing the wall off the corner, because we didn't really see a whole lot of that in the duels. The thing I'm wondering, though, I mean, the duels, we had, what, 11, 12 drivers in each one of those respective duels? 23 drivers in the field here today. Now, we know that when you're running in somebody else's dirty air, it's going to tighten the race car up, and we mentioned that this racetrack and this race, a lot of speedway fundamentals, so with running in somebody else's wake, is that causing these drivers, you think, to have that little bit of aero tightness coming off of turn 4 especially, sending them up into the wall?
That's a big factor if there were high downforce, and if there's turbulent air coming off the cars, then sure, that could be a huge factor. I don't think you're going to see it as much with these drivers as you would with high downforce cars, but there is an effect, and if you're behind somebody trailing them at high speed, then you got to get some arc down into the turn. If there's any bit of wake that comes off, any dirty air, any bit of turbulence, it's going to shoot you up the wall. And that's going to be a bad day for a lot of drivers as there's another one in the wall. I think that was a green car that just went up into the wall. Was that possibly...
Level 0 of Houndshell, I think.
Yeah, that was Houndshell that just went up into the wall. So it's always at a turn 4. It seems like that turn 4 is having a lot of issues having drivers shoot up the wall. The Houndshell is just the latest casualty of turn 4 and the wall in turn 4. Blaine Atkins, though, is going to go to the lead of the race. He's got a lap-down car in front of him in the 16 of Granary, so you're going to have to try and skate away. Maybe they can get a bit of a gap, two cars running behind each other, but so far we'll see if anyone else pushes up out of turn 4. The tires also could be going down. That might be another factor.
Yeah, we know that these drivers have 8 sets of tires to work with here today, so roughly about every 25 laps, if they chose to, they could come down pit road and take on a new set of Goodyears. And with this 16 out in front, the 2 of Jeff Green is the race leader. The 16 is actually now on the tail end of the lead lap. So if the caution were to come out right now, he would already be on the lead lap, and Jason Houndshell, who we saw get in the wall just moments ago, he would still be in the free pass position. If Guarneri gets lapped here, he would be in the free pass spot, but looks like he's got a car that's just as fast as the race leaders. And remember, the 16 and the 2 up here are 2 drivers that we absolutely know have already utilized one of their 2 faster pairs, so they've got to be careful.
Yeah, and right now the 2 is trying to force his luck as Jeff Green is pushing the 16 down into the tri-oval. Looks like there's a lot of drivers pushing up the track. They're side by side back there. 4th, I believe that's 3rd place. Trying to get around the lap car. Well, he's not really lapped at the moment, but trying to get around Granary. Granary is putting the block on all these leaders. He wants to stay on the lead lap. He's not in a terribly critical spot at the moment, though. Even if he does lose his lap, if a caution comes out, he will get the lucky dog. So now he's a lap down, so now he is the first in line for the lucky dog. So not a terrible situation. I wonder if he was seeing what kind of car he had if he was at the front of the field, maybe strategizing for later on in the race. These drivers, the 40,
Whoa!
man, and now they're going surround out of turn 4, spinning down into the tri-oval, and now I believe that's the 16 and the 88.
It is indeed. The 16 spins up to the wall. The 88 spins to pit road. We got oncoming traffic here, and everybody slows down to avoid Guarneri, who's still stuck up there in the upper lane of the tri-oval. Caution is going to fly, and to be perfectly honest with how that looked coming off of turn 4, that was a relatively calm yellow flag for what could have easily been a second big one here today.
For sure. Again, at the front of the field, 3 wide racing, and we've seen the tires start to fall off, and we saw a lot of drivers even before the tires started to fall off. A lot of them were tracking up towards the outside wall at the exit of 4, but thankfully we only get away with 2 drivers, and it looks like the 16 might not be that damaged. It looked like a violent crash. Might not have been. The 16, it's got a tad bit of rear end damage on that 16 car, so have to see if he can get back up, and he can't afford to use another fast repair at this stage in the race, though, Seth. I don't think that he can afford to use one, and I don't think that the 88 can afford to use one either.
The 88, I do believe, has not used a fast repair yet, so if he wanted to, obviously it's still awfully early, but I think he could. You're right, the 16, I don't think he can at all. And I want you to watch the gray number 63. I'm sorry, actually, that's actually Houndshell in the 02. He was in a rock and a hard place because you had Blaine Atkin getting loose, coming off the corner, and he had Guarneri up into the wall on the top side, and he was in the middle trying to figure out where do I go because both the cars in front of him had lost momentum.
He did have a good save, though, did he? He was pinging off of drivers, and he ended up getting it straight. Didn't tag the outside wall, or even if he did, he only tagged it just and was able to get going in the right direction. So good driving on the part of the O2 machine. Good driving on part of pretty much everyone else behind them because they saw the incident happen in front and they had to react quickly and just, again, pushing up the racetrack out of turn 4. We've seen it lap after lap in the later stages of this race so far, or later stages of this fuel run. Speaking of fuel run, I think a lot of these drivers are on pit road at the moment.
Not surprised. I think that all these drivers, they're coming down for fuel, no doubt. But I think they're coming down for a set of tires for sure, because that was the longest run we've had so far here today in between cautions 2 and 3. We looked back at the replay there of what happened with Kyle Johnson, and unfortunately for him, he did get that inside wall just before the entrance of pit road. Looked like for the most part it was with the back end of the race car, but knowing how loose these cars are to begin with having the low spoiler, if you're out there with damage and no spoiler, you're going to be wheeling that thing even worse into the entry of the corner.
It's even 100% wouldn't want any rear end damage. I would have almost rather a side panel hit on the inside wall, or he almost missed the inside wall completely, and I think that's what he was hoping for. He put the gun on it and tried to accelerate just enough to stop it from hitting the inside wall, but just on the edge of the pit wall was able to hit it. But still, if he can use a fast repair, that would be the ideal situation for that 88, but he's still on pit road just now coming out, so maybe he didn't. The 16 is also coming out. The O2 is coming out with some damage that they're repairing on that machine for Houndshell. So Houndshell has found himself going back to the 17th position at this stage in the race. The leader is going to be the 81 of Shane Lake, and I don't think that we would have said that a couple of laps ago.
Nope. He's out there leading, and it looks like he will actually be leading us back to green. He was last on pit road 19 laps ago, was the driver of the 81. Blaine Atkin will line up second, Randy Koking third, Jeff Green fourth, John Whitendorf fifth. Everybody except for the 81 was on pit road this lap. Update on the 88 of Kyle Johnson. Believe it or not, with the damage he sustained, he did not come down pit road to get any of that damage repaired. He simply kept it out there, and we'll see how he's going to be when we go back green. Nobody took a fast repair there under this caution. And another thing that we got to follow up as well, Anthony Guarneri wanted to see a caution to get back in the lead lap, but he didn't want to be the caution because he was involved in that incident. That puts the 00 of Jason Houndshell back on the lead lap. So 18 drivers will be back on the lead lap of 23 that started this race and are still out there on the track.
Yeah, we're going to be going to green on lap 31 of 200, so still a long way for these drivers to go. These drivers, I think they've learned a lot about their cars as far as how they handle on the long run. As we've seen the tires start wearing off, you've seen how these cars react to coming in and out of turns. So we'll have to see if they have figured out anything that they can do to maybe make the most out of their cars and try to point it in the right direction, because these cars are getting battered in already. Shane Lake will lead us down. The 91 is a lap down and make that 2 laps down, 3 laps down even, as Peyton Hamley. He's going to line up behind the 81. Bit of a pick between him and the 44. Green flag back out in the air, and Lake gets a nice run, albeit to the extreme outside of the tri-oval. Now the 91 is going to be falling back, trying to hold up. Some of the other drivers are trying not to hold up some of the faster drivers, but that 91 is still damaged. The 44 of Atkin trying to get around him.
Yeah, right now, Peyton Hamlet just trying to minimize the damage he got earlier on in this race. To my knowledge, still has not used a fast repair in this one, so a lot of the damage he got earlier on in this race affected his speed. Is going to get hooked. Randy Koking up and over.
The 19 made contact with the 91, and now flipping goes the 19. I think landing back on his wheels, but man, that was just unfortunate timing there.
John Whitendorf, who finished 4th here 1 year ago, was also collected up in the 33, 30 laps in, working our 4th caution of the day. And another incident, Anthony, up towards the front of the field.
I think what happened with this one, I think what happened here was the 19 of Koking was trying to get around Hamlet. Hamlet is the slower car, still with damage 3 laps down. trying his best to stay to the inside of the racetrack. Could have gone below the yellow line even, but it looked like the Koking might have gotten a little bit too impatient. His car got a little bit of air underneath it and low downforce, slid up the racetrack, slid back down the racetrack, got into the 91, and then that sent him up into what I think is the 33 was involved there.
Absolutely could have gone down below the yellow line because, as we were told last week, that yellow line is not out of bounds for these drivers here today. So something else we got to kind of bear in mind for later on in this race of drivers that'll try and make the move for the win. We're going to ride on board here with the 19 and watch the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Watch the hands. Trying to go low, trying to go high, and you saw him just try and gather the car back up. But that might be another thing, too. I mean, we know that these cars are loose. To make abrasive maneuvers and evasive maneuvers like that, I kind of think that these cars, with the way they're set up, they're not really built for that because you're just not going to have the grip available to you to be able to move left and right, darting that quickly.
Certainly not a Formula One car. These cars are. I don't know how many times we can say it, but there's just no downforce with these cars. They have one spoiler in the back and a little bit of what is to be a splitter in the front, and that's about all the downforce you've got. The rest of the car is a brick with a massive engine in it. So these cars are great for straight line speed, and you can chuck them into a turn and they will stick. But if you try to make sudden movements like we just saw, you'll get air underneath the cars. The ride height on these cars is much higher than we see on modern day cars of any kind, really, and modern day race cars for that matter. You get a little bit of air underneath them, and it's almost like they're floating when you're trying to make evasive maneuvers. And unless you have the ride height set to be where you find that little magic area where you get a little bit of ground effect with these cars, you get a little bit of the air sucking the car down, but even then, there's just not enough aero on the top of the car to be able to push the car down onto the racetrack. So things like this, they happen with these cars more often than not, but it's just another thing that these drivers have to deal with these cars. These cars, this racetrack, we're going to see this all season long. This isn't just a Daytona thing. Every track that these cars go to, they're going to have to worry about the aerodynamics of these cars and having to wheel them around some very modern racetracks. So, and given it the speeds that we're running, it's a tough challenge for these drivers. And sometimes they get it wrong. It might not be their fault that they get it wrong. It's just sometimes things happen and you have to react quickly, but you have to remember, if you come over from a modern car, applying modern car physics logic to these cars doesn't work. So you have to kind of reprogram your brain how to drive these cars. Also, I think this is true, but these cars don't have power steering either. So even more work has to be done to get these cars wheeled around.
Absolutely. Jeff Green, now the race leader. Looks like 7 drivers stayed out under this caution. The lucky dog under this one is going to be the 7 of Jackson McLaren, so he'll be back on the lead lap. It'll give us a total of 18 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. The 63 of Hank Steinmiller was actually back on pit road, and he's actually fallen a lap down to the leaders after we saw him get involved in that incident off of turn 4 on our previous caution to this one. But still, all 23 drivers listed in the race. 19 of Randy Koking sits on pit road getting damage repaired to his machine, and now it looks like the 91 of Peyton Hamlet down pit road as well to get damage repaired to his car. So still all 23 cars still scored in the race, even though we've got a couple that are trying to get their damage repaired. It's Green the leader. Atkin will now be second. Cooper Johnson in third. And one thing we talked about last week was drivers that moved over from the Grand National Series over here into the Cup Series that maybe had never been familiar with an 87 car. And we're going to kind of get to see who ended up putting in the time to figure out these race cars this week between the duels and the 500 as Johnson lines up third. Then our pole sitter, Christopher Morse Jr., he's still up here in the vicinity in fourth, and David White right now completing the top 5.
Yeah, that's a pretty stacked top 5, and one driver in particular that we've seen, or 2 drivers really, that we've seen in this top 5 that has started up here is Jeff Green and Christopher Morse Jr. We always talk about how some of these drivers will go to the back of the pack to miss some things. Well, take a look at the statistics on our cautions so far. Most of them, if not all of them, have happened towards the front. You had that one at the very beginning of the race that happened mid-pack. That was a solo car deal for the most part, but most of them have happened towards the front of the field. So these drivers, the first thing that they do, some of them, is go to the back of the field to try and avoid some of the 3-wide racing that happens. Green flag is back out in the air. Nobody got a really good jump, and now it looks like that towards the back, or third place rather, is going to be ducking down to the inside. That's Johnson trying to get around Atkin. Atkins having none of it. He's going to push Jeff Green through turn 1.
Right now, you've got 3 different teams represented up inside of the top 3. Morse Motorsports with Jeff Green, Smartway Motorsports with Blaine Atkin, and then the rookie out of Country Roads Motorsports, the fortune of Cooper Johnson, as now you're starting to see drivers fading to the back again, utilizing the apron to drop towards the rear. Because of that, there's a huge gap from 5th place Christopher Morse Jr. back to the 6th place driver, which now is rookie Todd Seaburn.
And Todd Seaburn doing a great job so far up in the 6th place position. He's actually now running down the top 5 in that 71 machine. And I got to say, that's a really nice livery on that 71 as well. It's aesthetic to the eye when you're watching it go around the track. But Shane Lake is going to be right behind him in the 81. 71-81 running 6th and 7th, trying to catch up to the lead pack of cars. And it looks like Bo Brady, the 20 car, back trying to get his way towards the front of the field in that 20. He's had a fast car all race long thus far. He was leading the race at one point. Had a little bit of some issues happen with him, but now the 20 making his way back up. Gavel also making his way back up, trying to get up there. That's your top 9, and then you have the 42 running back there. He's kind of no man's lane. He's got the O2 with him of Hound Show, but they're trying to make their way back up to the front.
And if these were modern day cars and modern day aero package, drivers that are running 6th place on back, we'd say, well, that's it. They're out of the draft. They're not going to be able to challenge here. But if we go back to the duels last week, Gerald Campbell, who ended up winning the first duel with about 10 to go, he was about, 10 car lengths back behind the next driver that was in a pack of race cars, and he ran them down. So we know the aero package is entirely different with these 87 cars. So those guys that may be towards the back there right now, don't count them out of it just yet.
We're still under green, but there was an incident with the 12 just now coming out of turn 2. I think a couple of drivers made contact and they went down to the inside of the racetrack. That would have been Bo Brady and Ryan Gavel made contact, had to go down onto the apron, but they're still running forward. We're still under green. Just saw it in the back of the camera that I was looking at, but right now Gavel now in 10th place and Bo Brady has fallen to 12th. So no caution, but that could have been big, especially if they'd hit the inside wall.
They saw the 20 was off the pace with Whitendorf going around him. Gavel has been able to get himself back up to speed. And now we got, looks like a driver hitting pit road. The 4 of James Roth. Also saw the 7 of Jackson McLaren on pit road moments ago also. So a lot of stuff happening here on this green flag run as now Jeff Green drifting up the hill into turn 3. Atkin went to capitalize, but then he pushed up coming through 4.
Yeah, he had a run. He tried to take it to the outside, but not enough racetrack. I think the wall was closing in on him, so he tried to duck down to the inside. Now falling behind, going through the tri-oval. Look at the way that the back end is stepping out, coming out of the tri-oval. These cars are a whale to drive, and right now into turn 1, still 44 behind the 2. 31 trying to catch up. That'd be Campbell. And now you have a little bit of gap between Campbell and Morse. I don't think that Morse particularly wants to be up with those top 3. There is a large gap now because of that spin that happened earlier. Not really a spin, but because of that contact that happened earlier, there is a pretty big gap back from, I believe it's going to be the 5th place position. I'm sorry, make that 6th place all the way back to 7th. Is now you got Bo Caro leading the way. That would be the O2 of Houndshell behind him. So you have 2 very distinct groups of cars running on the racetrack right now.
Just saw the 33 of John Whitendorf coming off of pit lane. Now, he is still on the lead lap, and it's actually looking like he did not take service. So I'm not certain what went on there with the 33 car, almost like he had to serve a pass-through penalty perhaps or something. So tough break there for him. You see him just up ahead of the race leaders. He was merging back onto the track when race leader Jeff Green was coming off of turn 4.
Yeah, and now Atkin is literally pushing Jeff Green into turn 3, and good Lord, these drivers are racing like it's the last lap. But, the thing is with Blaine Atkin, he's kind of used to this because we saw him in the duels, how he was able to wheel around his car. So he's trying to test the waters a little bit, see what he can do later on in the race. But you got to remember, we're only working lap 41 at this moment, so don't want to have to push too far. But so far, Seth, it looks like they've been able to find a pretty good rhythm. And I don't want to put the commentator's curse on it, but this top 6 is pulling away from the 7th on back, and they might be able to make their own little ecosystem out here. They've got a couple of lap down cars that they're going to contend with soon, but they're running pretty solid right now.
They are right now about nearly 7 seconds between this lead group back to the OK Row, Jake Houndshell, Todd Seaburn, and Ryan Gavel foursome. And they are turning lap times infinitely faster. Right now, about 0.7 of a second faster is this front group than that second group. And so we'll see if they can continue this status quo. Obviously, the last thing they want to see is a caution come out, lose this advantage they have, and bring everybody else to their back door. But one of the things that I love is the fact that we've been covering G-Force since their first season here of the Vintage Clothing 87 series, and you get to watch drivers through these different races. And one thing that's really surprised me is the evolution of that driver, the 44, Blaine Atkin. If you went back one season ago, this was a guy that was really aggressive on restarts, really aggressive early on in the run, and would use up his stuff, use up his tires, and then fade the longer the run went on. We saw him utilize the Grand National Series here at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, where he worked on being able to conserve his tires for the long run. And honestly, I think that everything he learned there is going to help him to apply it here, and I think we're going to see him be a lot more consistently competitive than we saw him back in Season 1. I mean, he could make the move on Jeff Green right now. I think he's got a car fast enough. I think he's utilized the draft and the runs fast enough to be able to do so. I think he's being patient. I think he's biding his time, realizing it's not time to make the aggressive move like that yet. I'm going to just save my tires, maybe get this draft and save a little bit of fuel as well. Smart racing right now by the 44.
Indeed so. A lot of these drivers have advanced quite a bit. Even though that it wasn't around for most of the 87 series last season, I did, watch in a lot of the races, and just seeing the way that these drivers have advanced, like you said, like you use Blaine Atkin as an example, just seeing how they have advanced. And absolutely, I agree with you. Atkin right now is just biting his tongue. Like, I know I want to pass him. I know I can do it, but I can't do it right now because we're so early on in the race. Something that a lot of endurance racers have adopted is that you can definitely not win a race in turn one, but you can definitely lose a race in turn one. So I think that a lot of that mindset has to come over to some of these longer races. Even if you're during oval races, you don't want to have to force an issue if you don't need to. There's been a lot of drivers that when they started...
Oh, we got a caution. Sorry to cut you off. We got a caution. Ryan Gavel in the 12, I believe, has brought it out. Something happened off of turn 2 and onto the back straightaway.
That damage that the 12 sustained early in the race might have come back to haunt him, as I think that might have been one of the main reasons he went around. I don't know if he had any help or not. We'll have to go back and take a look, but there's definitely more damage on that Pennzoil car than there was when we started this run. I think it was by himself.
No, he got some help. 71 of Todd Seaburn pushing up the track there. Gavel was trying to give him the room, and then he gets forced up into the outside wall. That spins him around. That was the 4 drivers that were in that second group trying to reel in the lead pack. Well, it reeled them in now because this caution evaporates what was a 7-second and growing advantage between the front group and the second group.
He almost had that car saved as well, which was even more impressive given the amount of damage that 12 car is continuing to run around this track with. And I'm also impressed that car is up to speed considering the amount of damage he's got on that 12 car. But just wheeling it around, yeah, he almost did. And that lead that lead group of cars had, it could amount to that again, but you definitely don't want to have that evaporate if you're the lead group of cars. For Gavel, he might have been the one that caused a wreck, but he's kind of got a little bit of a grin on his face, probably like, okay, we're back competitive now. But still, amazing save after the fact from the 12 of Gavel as well.
2 more drivers that would have smiles on their faces would be John Whitendorf from the 33. He managed to stay ahead of the leaders, so he doesn't have to rely on the Lucky Dog. And the Lucky Dog driver is the 4 of James Roth. So we're going to have 15 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green flag racing. And no surprise, most of our race leaders coming down to take on another set of tires as another long green flag run for these guys.
Yeah, lap 46. About 15 laps after these guys were last down pit road, so wanting to get some fresh rubber on these cars. They got 8 sets to work with, so there's plenty of opportunity for these drivers to put on some fresh rubber. And one of the things that these drivers later on in the race are going to have to pay attention to is how many tire sets they've used up until that point, because you don't want to have to use a scuffed set for the end of a run if that comes down to it. But so far, I think most of these drivers have only used 3 sets at this point in the race, maybe only 2 for most of these drivers. In fact, it's like the first off pit road is going to be Jeff Green.
Yeah, and he went with fuel only, along with his teammate Chris Morse Jr. Campbell, who's going to be coming out, I believe, 3rd or 4th of the drivers that pit, he went with at least right side tires. I think Blaine Atkin may have gone with fuel only as well. Thing I'm a little bit worried about here is we know that everybody, after that first long green flag run, came down and took on a set of tires. they're going to be going out here are the 2, the 3, possibly the 44. They're going to be going into turn 1 on anywhere from 13 to 17 lap old tires.
Yeah, full of fuel as well, so the car will be heavier. That may help them a little bit, but certainly is not going to help them so much that the cars behind them with the fresh tires will just kind of freight train around them. We'll have to see if the tires really do matter. I am 100% sure that they do, but I don't know how much they will matter on a 17-lap run. I'm sure that they can hold on to it, but I don't know if their car is fast enough to be able to make those older tires work. I think also Atkin didn't take tires because he came out of pit road almost right behind Morse. So if the 44 didn't take tires, that was a slow fuel only stop, but Campbell definitely did, and everyone behind him did as well. A few drivers, though, opting to stay out. That would be Cooper Johnson, Shane Lake, and Todd Seaburn. They didn't even come down pit road, so those drivers are low on fuel and low on tire wear. So I don't know if that combination is going to work out for them, but it might. Track position might be the king here.
Definitely going to be an interesting restart with old tires, fresh tires, and then kind of in between there. 5 drivers staying out: Johnson, Lake, Seaburn, Brady, and White. Then Jeff Green, Chris Morse Jr., and Blaine Atkin, who came down, took on fuel but no tires. They're 6th through 8th. Gerald Campbell will be 9th, and Jake Hounshell in 10th. We are closing in on a quarter of the way through this race, and we do officially have our first retiree out. That is the 88 of Kyle Johnson, right now scored 22nd. If Randy Koking can get back out there and complete about 6 or 7 laps, it'll drop Johnson down to 23rd in the running order. I want to clear up something that happened on the last green flag run as well. I've been notified that if a driver receives 10x, which is incident points, during a race, they have to come down and serve a pass-through penalty. That would explain why we had about 3-4 drivers come down pit road under that last green flag run. So we'll keep an eye on that as this race progresses as well.
Yeah, there's a lot. Just throw another thing that these drivers have to look out for. You don't want to have a major penalty hit you later in the race, and as a result of that, everyone's on the lead lap still, except for some of the drivers with damage, but still don't want to have to do that if you're fighting for the lead of the race. Green flag back in the air. Johnson gets us back underway. Lap 47 make that of 200 and got a pretty good jump. Him, Lake as well did, as those two are going to kind of get away from the 71 of Seaburn. I don't know if Seaburn's car is up to speed with some of these other drivers, as he's falling back quite heavily right now. On the outside, you got Bo Brady making a move. Everyone's going to freight train him on the outside, or do you think that might be strategy on the part of the 71?
Well, I think there's 2 things that are going against the 71. Number 1, he was one of the drivers that didn't come to pit road, so he's got the old tires. Number 2, he did get a piece of that incident between himself and Ryan Gavel under that last caution. He did get up into the wall with the right side of his machine, so that could be hindering his speed as well.
Here he comes. He's coming down pit road at this moment in time, so we might have missed his pit window. Maybe he didn't know. Oh, goodness, here comes the 12 with him.
Ryan Gavel in as well, and he came flying in there to try and see if he could gain some track position perhaps on the 71 machine, who came down maybe a little bit more conservatively. But again, for that 12 machine, he's got to make sure that he gets down to the 55-mile-per-hour pit speed, because if he gets caught busted for speeding, he's going to have to come back down pit road again.
Now, those would have served penalties, looks like, for those 2 drivers, as they both had to do a pass-through, so the 71 and the 12. That may have been for the earlier incident, probably, and they can't serve those under a caution, so 71 and 12 kind of serving their 10x penalties, and that might have explained why they were both slow. Now, the 12, I don't know if he got slowed down enough time to make that commitment line. There was no way that he did not speed onto pit road, so I would imagine we're going to see him back down pit road at some point in time, but right now, it looks like that Bo Brady is out front leading the way. He got around, and now Jeff Green is in second place. So we were wondering how those old tires are going to stack up. Well, it doesn't look like Green is suffering any, because he's trying to go for the lead, but gets pushed up by Brady.
David White in the 83 got a little loose coming off of turn 2, getting out of driver's way. As right now, your top 3 are drivers that all found victory lane last time out in the Grand National Series. Brady winning at Phoenix, Green winning at Bristol, and Atkin winning at Richmond. They know how to get it done at the short tracks, obviously, but they are mixing it up for the race lead here at the Super Speedway.
They're driving down a short track just at 200 miles an hour with the way these cars are handling. They know how to do this. Oh, Brady tracks up the racetrack, almost cuts off the two, but oh man, what a piece of driving that was on the part of Green to get off the throttle just to make so that he didn't get into the left. Yeah, that was the left rear quarter panel of the 02. I'm sorry, the 20 make that. I can't even speak. That was incredible. We're still green, but yeah, these drivers are basically racing on a short track, but at significantly higher speeds than they would have the way these cars are handling right now. But Atkin to the lead. Goodness gracious, these drivers are now racing like it's the last lap, although they are coming out to lap 100 in about 50 laps time, so they definitely want to have that little bit of a bonus heading in, leading lap 100, and if they can get that win, then that's obviously going to add a whole lot to your win, your purse at the end of the race.
You know, the thing I gotta wonder though too, there's a lot of times that there's something like that, a target lap for drivers to try and lead, and then we talked to them post-race and they said, oh, I didn't even remember that was a thing. They were so concentrated on what was going on around them on the racetrack, they weren't paying attention to the lap counter. I almost wonder if that might be the case with these drivers right now, because you've got about 9-10 drivers up in this lead group, 9 of them on the lead lap, intermingle in there Jason Hounshell in the 00, who again is hoping for a caution to come out to get the lucky dog, which would be the second time today that he would be the recipient of a free pass.
Yeah, and he desperately needs it right now, does the 00. Mixing it up with these leaders, he's got a fast car, he's just not been able to be up with them at the moment. And there's a lot of drivers that are one lap down as well, trying to vie for that to get back onto the lead lap, although Houndshow definitely the better running of all of them, as McLaren is about he's way behind this lead group. Well, I shouldn't say way behind, he's actually right there in the in the 7 car. So there's a battle going on for position on the racetrack, both on the lead lap and off.
Jason, what a save! That car was flat sideways going into 3.
Goodness gracious, what a save, and here comes the 7 trying to get him. That could be crucial, that save on the part of the 00. He needed a caution, but you can't get your lap back if you are the caution, so good piece of driving on the part of the 00, and that has enabled Atkin and Green to kind of get away from this pack of cars. Here comes the 7 of McLaren, trying to get back into the lucky dog spot, but he's got a lead lap car in between him, that be Houndshell.
Yeah, the reason that right now I think McLaren is trying to get around that 02 is to get the free pass position. But remember, the 02 and the 00, they're brothers. So I think right now Jake was trying to play defense for Jason, trying to keep him in the free pass position. That's why he's racing this lap machine as hard as he is. Whoa. As now McLaren gets loose off of 4.
You can tell that he wants it. He almost got into the side of the 02. Now the Houndshell's continuing to stay in front. What a good battle going on, not for track position on the lead lap, but for the lucky dog position. You have a lot of races going on right now. This is reminiscent of a multi-class race when you've got 2 races going on at the same part of the racetrack almost.
And you know, right now we've got a number of drivers that are up here that we've seen during the course of the Grand National Series as well as last season. One thing we got to focus on as well, because this is the 2nd season of the Vintage 87 Cup Series, we have rookie class this year, and right now that rookie position for rookie of the race is being held. How about the 42 of Bo Cairo, driving a great race in that machine, currently holding down the 7th position, and to my knowledge hasn't really been involved in any incidents here today. So sometimes you got to be lucky, and sometimes avoiding Rex's skill. Something tells me this 42 could be someone to contend with in the closing stages.
Oh yeah, I think he's biding his time at the moment. We saw him with some speed in the dual race, so he knows how to get around this track. He knows how to get around with these drivers specifically. He spent quite a lot of time during practice in the qualifying session that we had. He really honed in on his race car. Then he was able to race in the dual, was competitive, now racing around in what is probably the brightest car on the circuit, we'll be honest here, in the 42 machine. You can definitely see that coming a mile away. I think that he's going to be a contender not only for this race, but for all season long the way he's driving right now. Driving very sensibly is his 42 machine. So consistency can sometimes win you a championship just based on the fact that you were able to get points while maybe it was fluctuating with the other competitors that you were competing against. So Cairo, we'll have to see him throughout the rest of the season, but good showing right now at Daytona.
may or may not have called his car the Barney Mobile pre-race. Cannot confirm nor deny. As we look here at third place, Christopher Morse Jr. now moving into that spot. Now, Christopher Morse Jr. trying to do something that at a super speedway is really difficult to do, and that is go coast to coast. He qualified on the pole, started on the inside of the front row, now trying to win the thing. And let's not forget, Christopher Morse Jr. comes into this season with the target on his back because he's the defending champ as well. What a statement he could make to the rest of the field if he were to be able to start out the season with a win at Daytona.
Just to show him that I'm not gone, I'm still here, and I'm still just as good as I was last season. A statement win. He got the pole, so he already has a statement made on this race. If he can go coast to coast like you said, then that's just the seal of approval on the 3 machine. And you know, Morse Jr. had a great season last year. He won a number of races. He was able to stay consistent. We saw him struggle at some tracks, though, and the tracks that he did struggle at, it was kind of a progression. We saw him go through the last season. He started out kind of
gracious, we almost had a wreck back there. Continue on your statement as I saved it.
No, who was that? Was that the 71?
The 71 and the 7 that got together.
A couple of cars battling on the lap down. So those drivers, they're trying to get back up so they can catch, I believe should be Jason Houndshell still. So they're trying to catch Houndshell, but man, incredible stuff on the part of those guys. But Morse Jr., he was able to progress. He started out kind of lacking at some track types, and then he was able to get better throughout the season. And at the end of the season, he was just a dominant force. I don't think there was anybody that had anything really to challenge for him. I think he had the championship won before the last race was ran. So statement win today would be the icing on the cake to start the season and see if he can maybe go coast to coast on the season, maybe winning this race and then winning the championship later on.
These may be 87 cars, but I think we've gone to the 2011 Aero package because we had two car tandems right there, and tandem number 2, which comprised of Morse Jr. and Brady, they've reeled in the lead tandem of Jeff Green and Blaine Atkin.
Well, they were able to make it work. These cars are very similar if you're going in a straight line. They got a really boxy front end and rear end, so they're able to push down the straightaways. That might not be a bad thing that these drivers can do. I don't think that we saw any of that happen in the dual races. Certainly not in the extent that we just saw. So kind of reminiscent of the 2011 Daytona 500, seeing 2 very distinct groups of cars, but there are only 2 cars in those groups. And back there even all the way to Houndshell and Lake, they're trying to get something started. And now, I'm sorry, that'd be no, that's a lap down. That's the 2 Houndshells. And then you'll see Shane Lake and Bo Cairo trying to get something going on. We might see some 2-car tandems or at least some alliances by the end of this race as it progresses. But right now, we're trying to get around the 12. That machine is battered significantly. I don't think he's
Caution is out. Hank Steinmiller has had an issue with Blake Ripley. That's off of turn 2.
And that, I believe, started out as a self-spin. No, maybe? Yeah, it started out as a self-spin on the part of Steinmiller.
Couple of lap machines getting together. Steinmiller was 1 lap down in 19th. Ripley, our dual 2 winner, was 2 laps down in 20th. And that caution is going to save Ryan Gavel, who had just been put a lap down. We'll take a look and see again what happened over here in turns 1 and 2. And oh, wow. The 63 is going to get cleaned out here in just a moment.
Oh, yes, he will. He started out with a spin. I don't know if there was any contact. It might have been a little bit of contact, or the air behind the car might have gotten a little bit pushed, but just got battered not once, but twice coming out of turn 2.
Yeah, it was Ryan Lutz in the 36 that had the hardest impact, that first hit into the 63, and then a second minor hit there for the 21 of Blake Ripley. And yeah, to your point, I'm not certain if there was space between the 63 and the 31 of Gerald Campbell, or if there was a little bit of contact. We'll try and see if we can ride on board the 31 and see if indeed, if maybe there was a tiny bit of contact there in the corner, but at least from the angle that we had, looked like there was space.
Yeah, there was a little bit there, so looks like the car just got a little bit unhappy in the rear end, and that was all that took to spin the 63 around, and I almost had to save it. He hadn't gotten hit. I think he would have been okay. Tires would have been on fire, but got hit twice, and he's going to have some extensive work done on that car to get the damage fixed, and I think everyone just pitted.
Everyone except for the 00.
Oh, Morse stayed out.
I'm sorry, the 02. 02.
Okay. Yeah, looking at live right now, definitely an interesting strategy on the part of Jake Houndshell.
Not really certain what the strategy would be, although I think he pitted under the last caution and might have taken on tires. So maybe trying to Blaine Atkin, Jeff Green, those are drivers that would have had to have taken on tires here since they didn't under the last caution. So maybe Jake Houndshell thinking that if he stays out here, it evens out his number of sets that are left as well as some of his other competitors in the 2, the 3, the 44.
Yeah, that might be the case. Definitely not where he needed to be in case that they do go into a long green flag run and that he does have to come down for fuel, but he could make that work if the math works out. And being regulated to a tire set limit is definitely a lot of brain work, especially when you're also driving the car. Normally, you'd have a crew chief that would do that for you, but you have to be your own crew chief in this scenario. And man, I don't know. That might be the case. Houndshell will still be up to speed. I think he's only 17 laps compared to Fresh. He might get freight trained, but Houndshell has to do what he has to do. But he's now the leader of the race, Seth, and we're working lap 63. So far, everyone is still running except for Kyle Johnson. So a lot of these drivers still sticking with it. We have the majority of the cars still on the lead lap. So definitely a pretty fast and clean race so far.
Yeah, Ryan Gavel getting the free pass under this yellow will have us with 14 drivers on the lead lap. And I mean, if we look at most of the drivers right now that are off the lead lap, you got Seaburn, McLaren, Guarneri, and Jason Houndshell. They're all -1. So, with a couple of cautions, they've still got a chance of getting back on the lead lap. Blake Ripley -2, even though he's got some damage from that latest incident. Hank Steinmiller right now -3. The drivers that I'm a little bit concerned for right now, even though we still have about 135 laps to go, 7 laps down is Peyton Hamlet, and Randy Koken still sits on pit road 32 laps down. So it's almost seeming like more than likely the 19 is certainly out of the running for this win. And Peyton Hamlet, I mean, that's an awful lot of caution to be able to get yourself back on the lead lap. I mean, there's still, 6 drivers ahead of you that in the span of 9 cautions would get back on the lead lap. So that's 16 cautions you're relying on. Obviously, I don't want to see 16 cautions. I know he does, and I don't think he'd get that many to get back in the lead lap. So realistically, we may only have 20 drivers that could keep themselves in the running for this win as things stand right now.
Super slow since that I think that second yellow flag where he was involved. So I don't know what's happened with the 91. I don't know if he's been able to use the fast repair, but something's still amiss with that car. But the 91 of Hamlet has been very slow on pace and almost looked like he ran out of fuel at some point. But the way they line up for the restart is going to be Houndshell, Jake Houndshell make that, John Whitendorf, Blaine Atkin, Jeff Green, Shane Lake. That's going to be your top 5 as we're going to go back to green. There's a car on the inside line back there. Not sure what he's doing on the extreme inside, but we're back green and how is the rest of the field on that start? They're going 3 wide for second.
We know Blaine Atkin is very aggressive on restarts, and he just jumped to the inside of a lap machine, the 71, and he also put John Whitendorf up on the top. So a very aggressive start here for the driver of the 44.
Yeah, absolutely. And now he's up to second place, though. It's paid off for him as they're trying to run down the O2. He's got himself about make that a 0% lead at this point in time as he's going to get freight trained by the 44. That big lead really did hurt the O2. And now to the lead goes Atkin, Jeff Green following him on the inside of the racetrack. And looks like everyone's kind of spreading out behind them, Seth. It looks like they might try to get into a green flag run. Still single file up until about the 5th place position where you've got a challenge on Bo Brady. That's Gerald Campbell.
It's hard not to admire the guts of Jeff Green because we saw him get involved in that incident back prior to lap 10. We know he had to use a fast repair, and he's still aggressively up here, gunning himself to the front. I mean, we know that if he gets involved in another wreck that kills his engine, his race is over. But that never quit attitude of Jeff Green, it's been able to keep him out there in clean air. And I mean, for the most part, I guess you could say the front of the field, the race lead is the safest part of the racetrack. And I say that now with the 00, or make that the 02, and the 44 breathing down his neck.
It's kind of the safest place in the sense that you don't have anyone in front of you, but you've got 22 other drivers behind you that really want that position you're in. So, is it really the safest? Because you got a lot of sharks that want the same piece of meat, but right now, looks like that the 44 is the hungriest shark, pushing the two down the back straightaway into turn 3, down to the inside of the racetrack. Oh, a little bit of a bobble from the 2 of green going through turn 4, and I think he might have hit one of the bumps in the turn on the inside of the racetrack, shot the car up a little bit, and if there had been somebody right there, that might have been an incident, but so far, here comes Jake Houndshell trying to go back to the lead of the race after losing it on the restart. Those tires, we were talking about how the tire wear would be. He's on 17-lap older tires than these drivers right now, still running up just as much up to speed as the rest of them, if not just as fast, or even a little bit faster maybe.
Yeah, certainly looks like he does not have any problems with the handling of that race car despite having those older tires. It's obviously not hurting him in terms of speed.
Whoa!
And I spoke too soon as he gets loose there in the middle of 3 and 4. Still trying to save it as Gerald Campbell, credit him for the good Samaritan lifting, allowing Houndshell to gather that thing back up. Same for Shane Lake. What a great save by Houndshell, and we avoid a yellow flag coming out.
So it's confirmed the commentator curse is real.
Yes.
Wow. But good save on the part of Houndshell. We've seen a lot of drivers when they get into that situation this race, so they just loop around or go up into the wall, but he was able to hold on to it. And to your point, credit Campbell. Good alertness, getting off the throttle, allowing the O2 to regather the race car. So perfect piece of driving on those bit of drivers, but that has allowed the top 3 to get away. Green, Atkin, and Brady now the top 3. Significant distance back to the 33 of Whitendorf, who now runs in a very lonely 4th place.
Yeah, the good news for Houndshell, Lake, and Campbell, all of their race cars still in one piece. The bad news is it dropped them back to 10th through 12th, and now about 6 seconds behind the race leader. So they're going to obviously be hoping for a caution to catch themselves back up, and I don't know if necessarily those two are going to be able to pull away of Green and Atkin, because the one time we saw one group pull away from the other was when there were 6 pulling away from 4. You've actually got a group of 4 lined up back there with Whitendorf, Morse Jr., Gavel, and the lap machine of Jason Houndshell, and it looks like they are producing just a little bit more speed than the top 3.
The biggest tell is that Bo Brady has not been able to catch the top 2. So if Bo Brady by himself can't catch them, then these top 2 are going to be a little bit, just a little bit faster than just a single car. So having that be the way it is, you're going to have that second pack going to catch up to them pretty quickly, as I think right now they're running about a 10th faster, maybe a couple tenths faster at this point. Right now they're about almost 2, I don't know, it's about a 1 second lead at this stage back to Brady, Whitendorf to Brady. That's closing in quite a bit. So we'll have to see a couple laps. This lead pack is probably, well, I say lead pack, this lead group of 3 is probably going to become a lead group of maybe 7 or 8.
Kind of looks like Jeff Green and Blaine Atkin, they worked out a bit of a system here where Atkin has been very content to ride behind the 2 and push him. This has been going on really since back lap 30. These 2 have been nose to tail. Now, they're 2 drivers out of 2 entirely different teams, but as we know, when it comes to a super speedway, it doesn't necessarily have to be teammates. Your friends are where you find them. If you've got a fast race car and they've got a fast race car and you can hook up and produce a lot of speed like 2 really fast race cars and pull it for everybody else, you're going to work with them.
And speaking of fast race cars that are tandeming right now, Whitendorf and Morse Jr., they have closed up the gap quite a bit, and they're running by themselves. Right now, Morse has got a bit of about a 4-car length gap back to the 33. I'm sorry, the 4-length gap to the 33. But those drivers, they've been able to find a bit of speed. They've been able to catch up. They've got the wake of the cars in front of them. They're now reeling them in. So now it's a top 5 battle for the lead of the race, as the 33 is now caught up to the wake of Bo Brady. They're going to be right there in a couple of turns' time.
If anything we've learned from Daytona, it's that John Whitendorf and Christopher Morse Jr. seem to find themselves in the same place at the same time. Those two were the front row in last season's Daytona 500 and both finished inside the top 5 in 4th and 5th. That's where they currently run, trying to reel in this top 3. And Anthony, if we look at the top left of our screen, we are closing in on 25 laps away from lap 100. So we've got a lot of contenders up here inside of this top 5. Barring a caution coming out, it's looking like one of these 5 will more than likely be the leader of that 100th lap. And as we know, there's $75 on the line for the winner of tonight's race, a $25 bonus if the driver that wins leads the lap 100. So how aggressive do you think these guys are going to be to lead that 100th lap, knowing that if they make a mistake, they could be taking themselves out of the running of the $75 of winning this race?
Well, you don't, yeah, exactly. You don't want to push too hard because you got to be at the end.
Caution. Well, caution is out. It's David White, I believe, in the 83, and he's up into the catch fence there of turn 4.
That had to have been aggressive for that car to end up there. I don't think we've seen that happen in a long time on this series, maybe even ever in the G4 series.
A la Jeff Gordon in the iRacing Talladega race. I think that happened to him. Let's see what happened here into turn 3. Just gets up the track, into the wall, back down the racing surface, and then it's the 4 that gets him, and oh wow, then gets shot up into the air. Literally shot up into the air by, I think that was Randy Koken in the 19.
He went and said hi to all the people in the parking lot with that leap out of the racetrack. Goodness me, what a hit from the 4 that launched him up in the air, but David White took an almighty ride in the 23.
We got planes taken off from the airport off of turn 2. We just had liftoff over in turn 3 as well. Gonna take another camera angle of this with David White and watch again. You're gonna see the 19 of Randy Koken come in. He's going to hit him T-bone square, and I can't believe the amount of height the 23 got because of that. Look at that. As the air goes underneath the car and almost cleared the catch fence, did David White. Almost went out there into the outskirts of the racetrack.
Almost had to get FAA clearance for that wreck. Goodness gracious. I can't believe that the way that the car was able to hit perfectly, because he got slammed by the 4, was able to just kind of paying off, but then all of a sudden, when Koken came in, it's like a little spring pad, just right up in the air. It didn't lose any momentum either. And that's the craziest part. Like, neither of the two did.
Strange hit with the angle it was at. Under normal circumstances, you would expect to see the car get propelled forward, maybe go into a barrel roll, but catching that much air, really surprising. And unfortunately for David White, that's the first incident that he's been involved today. That has fast repair written all over it, so he'll have to use one of the 2 fast repairs available to him. And Randy Koken, I don't think he has used a fast repair yet. I think he's going to have to use one of them now. He spent a long time on pit road getting his car manually repaired, 36 laps down as a result. And as we saw, just about everybody came down pit road, with the exception of Gerald Campbell and Cooper Johnson. Now, we threw out numbers, Anthony, of drivers that had been staying out for 17 laps, 13 laps. These guys have been out for a total of 20 laps. So, how far can we go on a set of tires before they're really uncomfortable? We saw Jake Hounshaw on old tires have an issue under that last green flag run.
We're certainly going to find out. Campbell and Johnson, I don't want to use the term, but they're going to be the guinea pigs for this stretch of run. They're going to see how far they can stretch these tires. If you can go longer than a 25 lap stint, because I think that's the longest that we've seen these drivers go for, is anywhere between 20 and 25 laps. So if they're up to speed, then they could be competitive. Although we did say that about another driver who almost wrecked the front of the field when we said that his tires looked like they were up to speed, and that was the O2 of Hounshaw. So it depends. How much grip can you get into these cars, into these tires, when you're trying to race and trying to stay up at the front of the field, knowing that there's drivers behind you, just behind you, that have taken tires. Think Jeff Green, Blaine Atkin, John Whitendorf, Ryan Gavel. He's taken tires, and that car is still damaged. I don't know how he's been able to wheel that car around the racetrack, but he's running 6th place. you know, it's going to be interesting if Campbell and Johnson do show some speed, and how well are they able to control their cars, which has been the hot topic of the night.
And another driver to the list that used a faster pair, David White, obviously, being up there in the catch fence. He has now used one of them. He is still going to be running one lap down in the 16th position. Perseverance paid off for Jason Hounshell, finally gets his second lucky dog of the day, and he gets on to the lead lap now, going to be restarting back in the 13th position. We'll be going back green with Gerald Campbell leading the way. He was our Duel 1 winner. He's going to have Cooper Johnson behind him. Then you've got a couple of lap machines between second place back to third place, Jeff Green. Fourth will be Blaine Akin, John Whitendorf in fifth. Rest of the top 10, Ryan Gavel, Bo Brady, Jake Hounshell, Bo Cairo, and James Roth. Shane Lake right now in 11th. Christopher Morse Jr. in 12th. Jason Hounshell in 13th, and Ryan Lutz in 14th. Those are the drivers on the lead lap. Right now, we have 22 drivers that are still running as we get ready for what's going to be another green flag here, another restart, and another lap closer to lap 100.
Yep, we're getting close to halfway. We're going to be going green on lap 78 of 200. Green flag back out in the air. Campbell and Johnson got a good jump. Green and Atkin got kind of caught sleeping as they're going to try and get back up there. And I think they have a couple of lap drivers between those two drivers, though, so they have a lot of work to do if they're going to catch up. Got to get around the 7 and the 71, going through turns 2 and 1 and 2. I'll get the numbers out right eventually. They go down to the inside, does Green, trying to put those drivers further down the order.
That was the 7 up ahead there of Jackson McLaren, the 71 of Todd Seaburn. Now, those drivers are not battling for the lucky dog, but they are battling for position. That's a side-by-side battle that was going on for 17th place, and it's going on right in the vicinity of your race leaders.
Yeah, you got the first and second right in front, and you got fourth and third right behind them, and man, it looks like the Green and Atkin trying to get to the inside of these drivers. They don't want to be caught up behind them as much as they possibly can. They're trying to get to the leaders. It looks like they're going to be able to do that. Going into turn 1, inside line goes Green and Atkin trying to get around the 7 now. That's going to be Jackson McLaren to the outside of them. Now they're going to hold up those drivers behind them, so 5th place is going to have to contend with both McLaren and Seaburn trying to go down the back straightaway. Leader is still Campbell, though, and here comes Green to the inside of Johnson.
Oh, he forced his way down to the inside, did Green, and then Blaine Atkin almost runs into the back of him. You know that wherever Green's going to go, Blaine Atkins is going to go with him. Those two have been nose to tail since a long time ago, back around lap 25, now trying to work themselves around the 31 of Gerald Campbell, trying to go back to positions 1 and 2.
Cooper Johnson almost got a piece of the wall coming out of turn 4, and then almost got a piece of the wall coming out of the tri-oval. Falling back is going to be the 14, losing positions like a rock, going back on the outside line. Now we have Jeff Green, forcing himself to the inside of Jared Campbell. Almost got the 31 loose, going down the back straightaway. That was a big shot to the left rear quarter panel. But now here comes Atkin trying to go on to Jeff Green. Does he have the momentum? Not quite. He has to fall back in line.
Got loose there through the center of turns 3 and 4, and now Campbell going to cross him over looking for the second position. Jeff Green now back out to the point again. Then you have the lap machine of Todd Seaburn. He's battling with Bo Brady, who's trying to keep the 12 of Ryan Gavel in his rearview mirror. And to your point, I don't know if it's just the fact that it's a lighter... Oh, Atkin with a save.
He's still trying to save it. 3 wide back there. Piece of the wall getting grabbed.
In the wall. They keep it straight, but boy, the biggest loser on that was the 20 car.
For sure, the 20 got a big chunk of the wall coming out of turn 2, and he's going to fall all the way down back to, I believe that's the 7th place position, as they're still racing sideways up in the front of the field. Sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to do that.
No,
man.
I was just going to bring up the point. I don't know if it's because it's a lighter race car, so it's more visible, but just, again, you brought up the point. That 12 car, Ryan Gavel, looks like it's been through a war zone. Almost kind of looks like an IROC car on the front, the way that it kind of reaches a point at the center grill, but still, he's not used a faster pair, and that thing still looks like it could win this race.
There's no doubt in my mind that he's got to be loving the way his I mean, I don't think he's loving the way his car is feeling, but he's loving the feeling of knowing that he's got those 2 fast repairs in the bag in case he needs to use them this late in the race, and being able to be this fast with a wounded race car. Imagine if that car was at 100%. He could put that thing wherever he wanted to. Akin in the wall, green sideways, almost. Oh, Akin, and they're going around to the front of the field. Akin and green spinning to the inside, tagging the inside wall, and we're under yellow yet again.
Ryan Gavel was also involved in that, and emerging through the smoke is going to be Bo Cairo, who's going to be the race leader, as it was just a wide up there off of turn 4 for the race lead. You had the 2 car, he was getting loose on the inside. You had Blaine Akin, he was getting loose on the top side. Ryan Gavel was trying to find some place to go with Gerald Campbell. You just got the feeling something was going to have to give.
There was a lot of back and forth at the front of the field just now, and just the way that they were racing. Coming into turn 3 is treacherous if you're too wide racing, and we've seen a lot of drivers struggle out of turn 4, and just like you said, something did have to break, and it looks like it was gonna be Blaine Atkin that was the one that broke it initially, but then I think Campbell was the one that sent green around.
We're going to look at a couple more camera angles here. The thing that concerns me, in the case of the 2 car, he did make some contact with the front end of his car into the inside wall. And remember, Jeff Green is one of those drivers that we know earlier on had to use a fast repair. So how badly is this going to affect his speed? I don't think it'll take him out of the race. But, I mean, we're not even halfway. Do you use that second fast repair now, or do you ride it out, wait and see what the race car feels like and what speed is in it after this front-end damage?
Having to use a fast repair now is definitely not on your radar. You have to save it for later in the race. We're not even halfway. We need to go another 100 laps after we get to lap 100. So to say that we set 100 as a bit of a point of interest because it has some implications for the winner of this race, but that's only halfway of the overall race. You don't want to have to use your safety nets this early on, especially when you have the way that these cars are handling and the way that we've seen these cautions come out. Sometimes there's no warning whatsoever. The car will just decide that it doesn't want to go the direction you want it to anymore. So having to use one this early on, I don't think that's something that you have to even consider. You just have to ride it out. Hopefully that your car is even a little bit competitive. That way you can stay on the lead lap rather. But definitely conserve that fast repair. You don't want to have to lose every safety net that you have, especially if it's the last 10 laps and you have a wrecked race car. You have to be in a position, or you were in a position where you could have won the race.
Back-to-back cautions that Gerald Campbell will decide to stay out. So he'll be the leader when we go back green. Also staying out under this yellow will be Jake Cownshell, Bo Brady, and Shane Lake. They will make up the top 4. Christopher Morse Jr. was the first one off of pit road. He'll be lined up in 5th place. And this caution going to put Anthony Guarneri back on the lead lap. So 15 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back racing. Closing in on the halfway point here for the Vintage 500 presented by Richmar Florists, race number 1 of the G-Force Vintage Clothing 87 series. We're going to take a commercial break, catch our breath, come back here to the action at Daytona. You're not going to miss a thing as we're going to go FRN side by side.
It's a road few dare to travel. A journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 2021 NNSCRA Daytona 500, Saturday, February 20th, exclusively on Flatout Racing Network.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
We welcome you back to Daytona. Green flag back in the air here for the Vintage 500 presented by Richmar Floors. Gerald Campbell gets us back underway. We're 14 laps away when we come back around from lap 100. And as you pointed out, Anthony, that's only halfway. We still got another 100 laps to go after that.
Oh yeah, this is a long race. I think it's going to be the longest race of the season for these drivers, so they got to settle in and realize that they still got 100 more to go after this one. We almost had a caution at the very beginning of the restart, though. As I look back, Todd Seaburn I don't know if he spun the tires or if that car just did not get up to speed. He didn't go through the gears right, but he ran into the back end and got a little bit loose, but now he's gone back the right way. 2 laps down is at 71, so no harm, no foul. We continue green, but Campbell, Houndshell, that is your top 2. This is a top 2 that we've gotten used to, although I don't know how Campbell's been able to keep that car as fast as it is, considering the fact that he's on right now, according to my monitor, 24-lap-old tires. So he's definitely going to be needing a tire change very soon. And if this race goes green for any length of time after that last yellow, he might be the only one going down pit road in the near future.
Well, the thing of it is, too, we haven't been able to get a clear idea of if there really is a disadvantage to old tires in terms of the competition around you. We know that you're going to be dealing with a much looser race car, not nearly as much grip going to the corner as the other drivers are with the fresh rubber, in the case of Jake Houndshell back during that last green flag run. But in the case of Gerald Campbell, I mean, if there is some advantage with the fresher tires, he could have as many as 2 sets available to him in the closing stage of this race. And remember, there is the potentiality that this race could go into an overtime green-white checkered. So if Gerald Campbell can hold off long enough, he could be one of the only drivers in this field that could come down, take on a set of tires for a green-white checkered overtime finish, putting him maybe at a huge advantage over everybody else.
That's true, and I think they're only doing one attempt at a green-white checker this season. I think that we have our updated rule book handy right here. So, yeah, it looks like they're only going to do one green-white checker for this season. So having that extra set for that one attempt, that's 2 laps. A lot can happen in 2 laps around Daytona, especially if you have fresh tires. You have a better chance of being able to put that car wherever you want to. Right now, looks like everyone's kind of just single-filed out. I think that they finally kind of realized that these cars are so unpredictable when you get onto a long run, especially with the way that the tires fall off, and just kind of run single file, maybe feel out the cars a little bit more, see what they can do. As I say that, though, the 3 of Morris definitely has other ideas. Is around the outside, the extreme outside, going to put that number 81 of Lake behind him, and now he's going to try and get the 20 on the outside as well, using the draft of the 31. But Houndshell to the lead of the race. They're still battling side by side for 3rd place. That lap 100 is coming up, and that extra bit of money at the end of the race does sound pretty enticing for some of these drivers, and including the 3, which around the outside, Kyle bushing it around the outside of the racetrack.
Trying to figure out if this is him utilizing the side draft or if this might be the fresh tires allowing that second groove to come into play and get that great exit off the back straightaway turn 2 down towards turn 3. You can see right there he's actually holding station with 2 drivers that are nose to tail to his inside down that straightaway. So that actually might be the advantage that we're going to start to see of fresh tires versus old. Update on some of the drivers. Oh, the caution's out, so we'll get to that in a moment. As it looks like Todd Seaburn may have had a problem. He's collected up Peyton Hamlet. Also, it's Equinarian, the 16, I think, that got a piece of it there off of turn 4.
And that might have been because of the 71's earlier incident when he ran into the back. Maybe the back end had a little loss of aero. So another wreck that Todd Seaburn has been involved in. That 71 just cannot catch a break this race.
See what happened to him this looks eerily similar to what we saw have happened with David White a couple of cautions ago. heading down into turn 3, and that thing just starts coming around on him before he even turned the wheel left to go into turn 3, hard into the outside wall, back down into traffic. There's the 91 of Peyton Hamlet with nowhere to go. There's Guarneri getting involved, and then, a little bit of contact there as well with, I think that might have been the 19 of Randy Koking. So at least 4 drivers collected up in this one. Some more hard hits being taken, and to your point, that's 71 of Todd Seaburn. He has had his hands full all race long.
Another driver that's had his hands full all race long and is kind of maybe going for the retirement button is definitely Peyton Hamlet. Another incident he's involved in. That 91 also can't catch a break as he came in and plowed into the 71. But man, it just, I want to bet that was because he lost aero in the back end of the car. What little aero there is, if you have that spoiler dip down any little bit more, then you're going to lose it completely. And we saw that by going into the turn. They're good on the 16. He got some damage. He didn't get a whole lot of damage considering what he could have gotten. So Guarneri, fast on the brakes, was able to minimize the damage on that 16 machine. But a lot of drivers, I think, might have just taken notice that old tires combined with low aerodynamics, your car is definitely a ticking time bomb when entering any of these turns, especially going over 200 miles an hour into a turn, and turn 3 specifically, because you're going from a relatively flat surface into a very sharp turn. Doesn't roll out like the exit of turn 4 does. It kind of rolls out of the turn, and same with the entry of turn 1. It kind of rolls in. The entry to turn 3 is definitely the hardest that these drivers have to be into a turn. The load on the car is so higher on the right side of the car when entering, and just caught out the 71 there.
Couple of drivers that this caution ended up aiding. Blaine Akin, he was the driver that had to serve a pass-through under that green flag run. He was able to stay on the lead lap. Same for David White. He had to serve a pass-through, as we saw. He was the lucky dog driver. First car 1 lap down, so he'll be back on the lead lap in 16th position. And a driver that dodged a bullet. We were riding on board there. That second on board was with the 91 of Peyton Hamlet, who has indeed now taken his car to the garage area. The car that was just ahead of him was Jeff Green in the 2, who had come down and done manual repairs, had not used his second fast repair, and he was just ahead of the 91. If that 71 had shot down the racetrack maybe a half second sooner, Jeff Green would have been involved and more than likely would have had to use his second fast repair then and now before we even got to the halfway point of this race. So very lucky that the timing was on his side for Jeff Green.
Absolutely. He puts himself back in contention for the win later on, a little bit more so because he can conserve that fast repair, which has been the talk of the town this entire race, knowing that you need to hold on to it if you have a shot at the end of this race, realistically, with the way that these cars have been handling. But we're still not even halfway yet. Lap 93 of 200, working lap 94 when we go back to green flag racing, and we're about to set them up yet again. Jake Hounshell has got some rear end damage, so that car a little bit wounded leading the race is the O2. That might have something to do with earlier on in the race when he got rear-ended, but still running in the lead of the race, that O2 is. Christopher Morse Jr., our pole sitter, running right behind him, defending champion. Christopher Morse Jr. will add that to his repertoire. And then we have Shane Lake, Jason Hounshell, who's found his way into the 4th place position, and Ryan Gavel. How in the world is that 12 car up to speed? I don't think I'll ever know.
It's about 3 drivers up inside the top 10 that I'm still trying to figure out how they have competitive speed with the damage that their cars have sustained. Race leader Jay Counshaw is one, Ryan Gavel in 5th is another, and Bo Brady in the 8th position would be the 3rd driver. I mean, these guys, they look like they would be off the pace with the damage they've got on their race cars, some in certain particular places of their machines than others, but they've all proven that they've still got cars that are capable of competing up inside of the top 5, and obviously in the case of Jay Countshell, up at the front of the field. So this brings up the question, if we get into the closing stages of a race and somebody has gotten some somewhat minimalistic damage from a wreck, let's say 10, 15 laps earlier, do you give up that track position, come down pit road and take on that fast repair? Does it give you any advantage and give you any extra speed over what you've already got?
It's certainly a question that these drivers with damage are going to be asking themselves. I don't know if it will or not, considering the fact that Gavel, yeah, he's having a handful with that 12 machine. That 12 car is definitely not the healthiest race car in the world right now. That can be sure. But he is competitive. If he can stay competitive, then he might not have to use that fast repair unless his car is on death row. Now, if that car needs to have it, then I'm sure he will. But right now, going for the 4th place position is that 12 car. I don't think he's going to need it anytime soon, does that 12.
Ryan Gavel, I've seen him race before, but I've only seen him race in late models at short tracks. He is wheeling and dealing at the super speedway now, trying to take that 3rd position away from Jason Hounshell. And credit Jason Hounshell. You want to talk about a warrior here in the first half of this race? Look no further than the 0-0. This is a guy that spent most of this first half 1 lap down, had to use 2 free passes to get back in the lead lap, and now he's up in this 4th position, got a front row seat of this battle for the lead.
Yeah, Christopher Morse to the lead of the race. Back to where he started this race at, but take a look at the 12 of Gavel right behind him. I think that the 12 has got the fastest car out of these top 5. To the inside goes the 12, Ryan Gavel, with a damaged race car leading the way. I don't think that we could have ever predicted that.
No, I don't think we could have at all. I mean, that car looks like it's ready to be headed to the garage area rather than to the front of the field, but there you see him, P1 in that 12 machine, a late entry into the series as well, and showing him how to get it done. Started this race shotgun, 23rd in the field, and now nearing the halfway point, he is leading the way in clean air, but here comes the challenge to the top side. Morse Jr. isn't done.
That 3 car is so fast in a straight line. That setup that he's got on that car is a rocket in a straight line. Someone who's the better in the turn. In the 0-2, turns the 12 down into the infield. Does he keep it off of the wall? Somehow, Gavel keeps it off the wall, sideways through the infield, coming back onto the circuit, now loops around through the tri-oval. I don't know if we're going to go to yellow for that, though.
Almost collected up the 21 of Ripley, but he did not make contact. Still no caution being thrown for the solo car incident off turn 4 for then race leader Ryan Gavel. Now it's Morse Jr. to the point. Gerald Campbell now going to challenge Hounsell for 2nd place. That's Jake actually in the 0-2. His brother Jason trying to offer the drafting help on the top side in the 4th position. And here comes everybody. Here comes Lake. Here comes Bo Brady, Cairo, Atkin, Roth, Johnson. You've got about 12 cars up here that you can throw a blanket over now.
They want to lead lap 100. They want to have a good shot at getting that extra bonus at the end of the race, and you got a lot of hungry people behind the 3 car. Although, like I said, Morris Jr., I don't know where he's gotten that straight line speed from all of a sudden. We seen him at the back of the pack pretty much the whole race, but now looks like that 3 car can't even be touched. Is now Hounshell, make that Jake Hounshell, trying his hardest on the outside line, trying to get any bit of momentum going down the back straightaway. He's got Campbell behind, trying to give assistance, but still to the inside. The 3 glued to the bottom of the racetrack through 3 and 4.
Boy, no love for the defending champ down the back stretch as Hounshell, Campbell, and Atkin all jumped up to that top line trying to work against him. Now Atkin switches lanes. He goes to the bottom to work with the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. He's going to push the 3 clear out in front, tries to move himself into 2nd place. Still a dogfight from 3rd place on back.
You've got Morse, Hounshell, Atkin, and then another Hounshell. Well, make that Hounshell's fall, and the other Hounshell's fall back to 6th place. I'm sorry, Campbell, make that Campbell running in 4th place, trying to push on that inside line, the train on the inside, but still Morse with no challenge to the inside line. Goes Campbell. Can he make it stick? You bet he can to the inside of the racetrack. Trying to, he goes up to the inside, almost got into Atkin, but Atkin holds on to it. We're still racing under green. Lap 100, here we come. Who leads it?
It's going to be the completion of this lap. If someone leads it and sweeps to win this race, they get an extra $25 bonus, but they've got to make it to the checkered flag first. They got to make it to completion of lap 100 first, and now Bo Brady gets loose in 4th place in front of Blaine Atkin. It's Morse looking at his rearview mirror. Campbell, remember, below the yellow line is inbounds, but he's going to jump to the top side. Who goes with him? Hounshell stays on the bottom as Morse going to hug that yellow line through 3 and 4.
Still hugging to, oh, Campbell, sideways coming into turn 3, still sideways throughout turn 3 and 4, trying to hold on to that car, and I think he has held on to it. Coming out of turn number 4, looks like it's going to be the 3 with a challenge, but Morse leads lap 100, and that's a statement.
And we've got a wreck back here as well, coming to that completion of lap 100, but no caution. It looks like James Roth and Shane Lake got together off the final corner. Lake's engine is smoking here, so that is horrible news for him, because not only is he probably going to have to use a faster pair, but no caution comes out to save him in all of that track position lost.
Yeah, the 4 car also of Roth. He had a great car in the later stages of that run. Now falls all the way back to 13. I'm sorry, make that 12. Trying to get back going to the lead of the race. You've got a hungry group of 3 cars. You've got Morse, Atkin, and Houndshell battling it out. Atkin, remember we were talking about earlier in the race, we were talking about his dual race, where we saw that car sideways for most of the race. I think that we're starting to see that kind of action coming out of the 44. He spent the last couple of laps trying to fight the car through these turns, trying to make it so that he doesn't spin around, but that 44 looking exactly like it did in the dual races, and if that's an indication, he had a really fast car despite being sideways most of the lap.
We saw Blaine Atkin a lot in the first half of this race, working with his buddy Jeff Green. Well, Green right now is currently scored in the 15th position, first car 1 lap down, but still looks like that car is competitive, as Blaine Atkin, we were just on board with him, saw him get loose, and there's Green that I just talked about. He's forcing the issue 3 wide with Bo Brady and Christopher Morse Jr. He wants to make sure he stays in that free pass position.
Jackson McLaren to the inside. He's got that free pass right now, though, in the 7 car. Does Jackson McLaren... I'm sorry, no, never mind. Jeff Green does. McLaren's 2 laps down. Never mind, forget that. McLaren trying to get one of his laps back so he can be a contender for the free pass if he can get to the lead of the race. Well, at the front of the field, if he can get by here, get one of his laps back, he wants to be in that position. But you've got Bo Brady now showing himself back up into the 3rd place position, trying to get around the 2-lap machine of the 7 of McLaren. Right now, nose to tail is the top 2 going down the front straightaway. I don't know if I'd be doing that if I were we've seen the 02 get a little sideways with that rear end damage. I don't think he wants to be in this game right now.
But I'll tell you what, if we come down to the end of this race, if I want someone pushing me on that final lap, I want it to be the 44. He was glued to Jeff Green earlier on. We saw him pushing Christopher Morse Jr. moments ago, and now he's shoving the back bumper of Jake Houndshell. That 44 car knows how to push drivers to the front. Right now, though, he's yet to really be up at the front himself leading this race. He seems like he's been pretty content to push somebody up there and ride in the 2nd position, but now he's got company. Bo Brady looking for that 2nd spot. He's bringing the lap machine McLaren, and now Blaine Atkin gonna loop it off of turn 4. Solo car incident. Do we see a yellow to save him? So far, we haven't seen yellows for incident off of turn 4 the last couple of times, and no caution coming out.
The 44 was playing with fire, and it finally burned him. Coming out of turn 4, we've seen it so many times with other drivers. The air just gets loose out of the car and spins him around, and that's exactly what happened there. Another incident that happens out of turn 4, and we see that all throughout the dual races as well. So nothing new to us, but these drivers, they have to be aware of the exit of turn 4. It's claimed a number of drivers so far.
O'Brady is now going to go to the front. I believe this might be the first time the 20 car has led at Daytona this season, as Jackson McLaren switches from bottom to top in front of 2nd place Houndshell. And how about this battling back behind them? Bo Cairo, Gerald Campbell, lap machine of Anthony Guarneri. They've been mixing it up the last couple of laps.
Yes, they have. They're trying to get to the lead of the race, trying to be in contention. Some of these drivers trying to get back to where they have a shot to get back on the lead lap. Guarneri, he's 1 lap down, trying to catch up to Jeff Green to put himself in the lucky dog spot, but he's got a long way to go if he wants to get up there, because he's got Campbell and Bo Cairo. We said he was a rookie. He's definitely not looking like a rookie right now. He looks like he's ready to go.
Oh, race leader Bo Brady losing it there in front of Gerald. I believe that was Houndshell. He saves it even after a punt from behind by Jeff Green.
And that's going to shoot Cairo up into 2nd place. He's going for the lead on Houndshell. We were talking about how he was a rookie. He certainly does not look like one right now. Look at that car go.
Sometimes at Daytona and Talladega, it's just about surviving and being in the right place at the right time. I know the 42 is fast. He's proven he's been up in the top 10 all day, but I almost think that he's in a position where he is right now just based on the fact he's been able to capitalize on everybody else's mistakes.
Pushing Houndshell down the back straightaway. He definitely wants the lead of the race right now. Pushing him into turn 3. They both go up the racetrack, almost scraping the wall, coming through the apex of turn 3. Now through 4. The inside has still got a lap machine there trying to work around him. Campbell's coming into the fray as well. A 3-car fight for the lead and a 4th car with the 7.
Oh, Bo Brady trying to get on the brakes as this looks like it might be a scheduled stop. I don't think he came to pit road for an unscheduled stop. We'll see if it's going to be to get possible damage repaired after his near spin there off of turn 4. But halfway through this race, before we got to lap 100, we had 3 drivers that had DNF. Peyton Hamlet, Randy Koken, and Kyle Johnson. Add 2 more drivers to the list. They've gone to the garage area in the last 10 laps. Shane Lake in the 81 looks like he'll finish in 19th. Todd Seaburn looks like he'll be finishing in 19th place here tonight. So right now, we've got a total of 18 drivers still in the running here, 11 of them on the lead lap, and we know that when we get into the second half of the race, that garage area starts to pile up with more and more drivers. So you have to wonder who's next on the hit list here, because it seems like anywhere in the field, trouble is ready to break out.
Daytona will definitely claim you if you try to push its boundaries. It knows when you've crossed the line, but so far, most of these drivers are still running. The new leader is Bo Cairo, running in front of Houndshell and Campbell, trying to hold on the lead. Whoa! Washes up the racetrack, trying to get around the 7 of them.
Oh no, we got a wreck back there. This was for the lucky dog position. Jeff Green gets into James Roth. He goes up into the wall. No caution yet for the number 4 machine.
So we're still green. We've had 3 separate things happen, but we're still green. The 4's gotten back going the right direction. Green is still running on the racetrack, still very much up to speed, so still green so far, but we have had 3 things that could have possibly brought out a yellow. But I think someone that's happy that a yellow hasn't come out is definitely this lead group of cars, because they checked out back to Christopher Morse.
Definitely have. They right now have got themselves over the rest of the field by about 2 seconds before you get back to Christopher Morse. Then Morse and his group are about 17 seconds ahead of the 3rd group. The battle for the lucky dog spot is still hot and heavy as well. Jeff Green may have gotten around James Roth, but now he's got Anthony Guarneri on his back bumper, and now the 2 coming to pit road. Looks like because he did get into the 4, Green's going to have to serve a pass through, so that now puts Guarneri into the free pass position if we were to get a yellow. But we've had, 4 or 5 incidents between the last caution and now, and we haven't had a caution come out for those.
No, and I don't know at this point what it's going to take to bring out a yellow. We've had solo car spins for the most part, including one of our leaders almost at one point, the 44 going around trying to hold on to it, and he did. It was out of the way of any oncoming traffic, so I think they might have said, okay, you're going to be safe to merge back onto the racetrack, so no harm, no foul. Right now, the leaders of the race, how long do they go before they need to pit? Because if you look right now, you have Cairo, who's got a 27-lap stint right now. You've got Houndshell working 36 laps. I don't know how his tires have held up this long. And then you've got Campbell running 20 laps, and then back to Morse, it's on 28 laps. So you have a mixed bag of strategies right now going through the top 4, even down to top 5. Who comes to pit road first? I would think it would have to be Jake Houndshell. Those tires have got to be on fire right now.
And how many drivers came into this race expecting they were going to make green flag pit stops and thusly practiced it when they had the opportunity under practice and under warm-up? Because we know that these drivers are slipping and sliding coming out of the corners. I would have to think once you get onto the brakes coming to pit road that you're going to be getting loose as well. And something else I noticed, a couple of drivers that came down pit road under green flag conditions to serve those pass-through penalties, when they get on the brakes, that right front takes a lot of abuse, and it's almost like the car itself doesn't want to turn. It's like it wants to turn you back onto the racetrack. So a couple of things that these drivers may not have experienced yet today if they have to make green flag pit stops that they may be experiencing for the first time.
Yeah, and especially if you have to do it in a group. Doing it by yourself is one thing, and we just saw earlier on in the race where Gavel was coming down to serve a penalty as well as the 71 of Seaburn. So when they came down to serve their penalty, Gavel came rushing in, almost getting in the back end of the 71. And that was only 2 cars. Can you imagine if this whole group of 5 right now tries to come down pit road and they're not used to having to make a sudden stop on the pit road? How many different lines they take going in? How aggressive do you be getting on the pit road? Because you don't want to get too far out in front of the group that you're in, just because you don't want to lose the draft. You don't want to have to be by yourself and get freight trained, or you don't want to lose the pack either. So, it's a game of who do I stay with? Can I stay with them? Hopefully they don't run in the back of me, and hopefully we can get on and off and get back going and not lose any positions in our individual groups. And I'll tell you, someone who's made up the most of a group is the 3, Morse. Like we said, he's been a rocket. He's caught up to this lead group, and he's running by himself.
And for the most part today, Christopher Morse Jr. has kept himself out of trouble. I don't think he's used a faster pair at all, so that's 2 that he's got in his hip pocket as we close in on 85 laps to go. And as we get into the second half of the race, it's almost kind of as if Thanos snapped his fingers, because we're starting to see drivers disappear now. 2 more drivers have gone to the garage area. Jeff Green has retired. He'll finish, looks like, in the 17th position, and Bo Brady will be finishing in 18th. And these are 2 drivers that were front runners for a majority of this race that now are out of contention of winning the Vintage 500.
16 drivers remain at the end of that, and I don't know why Jeff Green might have retired unless he was out of faster pairs and that car just had too much damage, not able to hold on to it, and at that point you go so many laps down that I don't think it would matter, because to stay competitive you'd have to be right up in the group with all these other drivers. Being competitive meaning that you might be caught up in another wreck if you're not careful. So it's really a lose-lose situation if you get into this run into the race and you have to forfeit all of your fast repairs. I just feel you gotta feel for him. You gotta feel for Bo Brady as well, because both of them had fast cars. Very easily could have won this race. Jeff Green obviously starting 2nd place for this race, so he's not going to be able to finish where he started or even better his position. But definitely when we go to the next week's race, he might be back, but it's definitely his heart's got to be heavy for this one.
Well, the thing that I can possibly assume might have happened with Jeff Green, obviously this season we've had the opportunity to look over the rule book for the series, and there is a ruling that you have a maximum of 30 incident limit. So I don't know if maybe the 2 might have reached that limit and thusly had to come down pit road and possibly park it. I mean, we've had a lot of incidents here in the first half of this race, so I'm certain a lot of incident points have been handed out, a lot of torn up race cars, so that could be a reason why we see some drivers end up retiring late in this race as well.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't even consider that, so might have hit his limit. Bo Brady, on the other hand, that might have been just due to damage. I don't think he would have hit his limit. Oh, green flag stops are happening. The leader is now coming in. That'd be Cairo.
Cairo as well as Jake Hounshell. They're going to come down pit road together. Both of them going to make it down to the 55-mile-per-hour pit road speed. And for the first time this entire week, we didn't see it in the duels, and we hadn't seen it prior to now in the 500. We're starting to see green flag pit stops come into play. And I mean, the field was spread out already, Anthony. It's going to get really spread out now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially when you don't have any idea who your partner's going to be when you come out. You don't know what strategy they're on. You definitely want to stay with somebody in order to make the most of your pit in and pit out. But you never know. Someone might have a different pit strategy than you and will just rocket away from you. Alternatively, you might see some of these drivers not come to pit road immediately, because we see their leaders right now coming around pit road. Campbell, Morse, and Hounshell. I'm sorry, just Campbell and Morse right now. They don't pit, so the top 2 staying out for a little while longer. It looks like that. I think that maybe not Cairo, but Jake Hounshell was able to go almost 40 laps on those tires, maybe even 45 laps on those tires. So we may not see Campbell and Morse on pit road for quite some time, if that's how far they can go.
Those 2 are going to come out 1 lap down. We saw them getting lapped as Campbell and Morse were heading into turn 2 when the 42 and the 02 were coming off of pit road into turn 1. 3rd through 5th, Jason Hounshell, Cooper Johnson, and John Whitendorf, they're lined up nose to tail right now. They're hoping that their 3-car pack can catch up to the 3-car pack up here, which have been able to recruit the lap machine, the 7 of Jackson McLaren, who right now is currently 2 laps down in the 13th position. And a driver that's also out there on the track that's picking up spots. He just moved himself from 19th up to 18th is Hank Steinmiller. And a thing that we got to remember here too, for Steinmiller, he's 14 laps down. His shot of winning this race, very, very slim. But this is a series that does not have a playoff system. It is whoever accumulates the most points during the course of this season, heading into the finale, is going to win the championship. For Hank Steinmiller, he realizes every position is points. So even though he's not going to win this race, he's going to try and get that 63, the best finishing position possible.
Absolutely, points add up. We don't see it very often, but there are some situations where a driver can win a championship without even winning a single race, and it's really hard to do. It's a Herculean effort, but there are some situations where you see that happen. But for Steinmiller, absolutely, more points towards the end of the season. Who knows? Those 5 extra points that he's getting right now, being 5 positions away from 23rd, that could come back later in the season and be like, oh, I have those points that I accumulated at Daytona all the way back at race 1, and that could be the difference between a championship and runner-up. So Steinmiller's fast. We know that he can be competitive throughout the rest of the season. It's just you gotta get by Daytona first. He's on pit road right now. It looks like this is gonna be a scheduled stop. No, it's a pass-through for the 63.
Same for the 36 of Ryan Lutz, who was a lead lap machine and now is subsequently going to fall a lap down because of this. So, boy, tough break for him, as well as the 63 of Hank Steinmiller, who both serving pass-through penalties for some reason. How about this duo we got up here at the front with Campbell and Morse Jr.? We mentioned already the fact that Christopher Morse Jr. comes into the second season of the 87 Cup Series as the defending champion, but Gerald Campbell comes in as a defending champion as well. The last series that was run, the Grand National Series, Campbell was the champion there. So both of these drivers trying to maybe consider this the rubber match series between the two of them. See who's going to be the first multi-time champ.
2 defending champions in the G-Force series, or the G-Force League, I should say, between the 2 series that they've run this, the Vintage Series and the Grand National. So definitely some bragging rights between these 2 drivers. They've been together quite a bit throughout these 2 series, the last season of the 87 series and obviously the last season of the Grand National Series. So they know each other very well. Some could say painfully well, as these 2 have had a number of tangles throughout these last 2 seasons of the 2 respective series. So, it has come to a head here, and there's definitely going to be some bragging rights at the end of this race. No matter who wins, the other is going to look at him and say, yeah, I'm going to be the favorite for this series. You can bet on it. So, bragging rights. Also, not really for Campbell, but for Morse, he wants to be a back-to-back champion of this series, of the 87 series. If he can do that, 1 season ran, he's the champion. You can go all the way through this season. Remember, this season's a long one. We go all the way into August, so it's going to be a long time coming. Who knows what will happen throughout this year? We don't know if maybe Campbell will get better and outclass Christopher Morse. We don't know if Morse will just continue his dominance. That 3 car has been fast. But I'm going to be excited to see the battle between Campbell and Morse all season long. 2 defending champions going for it to see who can be the champion of champions.
Well, we just saw it happen, and Anthony, I'm going to make you aware, so you don't think it might be a different driver. The 12 has used a faster pair. That beat it and battered Ryan Gabble machine, finally using one of his faster pairs during a regular green flag pit stop. So now we're going to get to see if maybe how competitive he was with a damaged car, just how much faster Ryan Gabble might be in these final 75 laps.
Looks like a brand new car. I barely recognize it.
Also, David White in the 83, he was down pit road to make a pit stop as well. We're still waiting to see when Campbell, Christopher Morse Jr., they're going to come down, and speaking of which, right on cue, here come the 31 and the 3 to pit lane.
It's about when we thought, they take out the cone with them. So I don't know if that's a penalty, though, if they take out the cone.
I don't think so.
Well, rest in peace, caution cone regardless.
He'll send out an angry tweet later.
Yeah, wrecked by the 31. I hate Monday, or it's Tuesday, actually. But they're going to come down pit road in their respective pit stalls. They started pretty close together at the beginning of this race. And they're going to take right sides at least. Do they go over to the left sides, take left side tires as well? Looks like no. It's going to be 2 tires, fuel for these 2 leaders, as they are going to wait, holding, getting the car full of fuel. Still waiting. Long stop for these 2 drivers.
See if that's going to translate to them still cycling out as the race leaders or not, as the 14 of Cooper Johnson, the 33 of John Whitendorf, they move into first and second, and look what fresh tires will do. Let 12 of Ryan Gabble ran these two down from about 10 car lengths back. That's one car against two cars, people. Under normal super speedway circumstances, that doesn't happen. But with these 87 cars and the downforce and the speed that they've got, it is possible to do. So Ryan Gavel, now with that brand new race car, he's got a rocket ship. We're waiting to see when rookie Cooper Johnson comes to pit road, as well as John Whitendorf, who finished top 5 here 1 year ago.
And an update on the 31 and the 3. They're just now being released from pit road. That was a really long stop for the two former leaders of the race. So I don't know if that was because they sped on the pit road or if they had accumulated penalties that they had to serve, but they are definitely going to fall down the order as a result of that. Cooper Johnson, Whitendorf still trying to hold back the 12, but look at the 12 around the outside, a rocket. That car, fresh, damage repair, and tires. I think the 12 car might have been the fastest on the racetrack. We just didn't know about it because he was damaged.
Could very well be, as he now slots in front of Whitendorf, behind race leader Cooper Johnson. To answer your question, Anthony, 30-second penalties apiece for the 31 and the 3, speeding on pit road. So very costly mistake. And again, as we said, these drivers all week long have yet to do a pit stop under green flag conditions. This was the first time that they had to come down pit road and make a green flag pit stop. Maybe unfamiliar with the braking zones to pit road entry, and it is certainly playing a factor here. A little bit of smoke up ahead of our race leaders there. That might have been with a driver having some rather bad connection, perhaps. Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody spun out, but man, it's all about execution when it comes to green flag pit stops, and it may have been a little bit of lack of experience for some of these guys. I'm trying to remember back to last season. I don't think they made a green flag pit stop last year either.
No, definitely not. And, you know, it's a new territory for these drivers. They, like you said, unfamiliar with it. Whoa, the 12 gets a little squirrely coming out of 4. But these leaders right now, Whitendorf, Johnson, they are in the best position possible. They are the only two drivers on the lead lap at this point. Now, that's not going to stay the way it is, because once they come down pit road, it looks like Blaine Atkin is going to inherit the lead in the 44. Yeah, I don't think he's pitted. He's certainly not on the same cycle.
He's on pit road now.
Okay, never mind.
44 just came to pit road, and it's like he's now leaving. I think the 42, who would have inherited the race lead, he just got loose and hard to the inside wall in 1 and 2.
And that's going to take Cairo out of it. Call me crazy. Is that Graneri running in what is going to be a net second place?
Yes, it would be. Now, the only thing, though, for Anthony Guarneri, he's running there now. He is in the same boat of John Whitendorf and Cooper Johnson. He still has to pit, so we don't know where he'd cycle around after he comes to pit road. But for the time being, a guy that found himself one lap down, trying to battle to get back on the lead lap with Jeff Green about 20 laps ago, right now inside the top 5.
And that would be good for him. If a caution were to come out now, he would be able to go pit and not lose a lap. So he's really praying that a yellow comes out. We've had a lot of things happen that could have brought one out. Still not having one. He's trying to force the issue down the inside of the 0-2 of Houndshell, who would inherit the lead once Whitendorf and Johnson pit. They still haven't come down pit road. Will they come down now? It looks like that Whitendorf is going to be the one coming down, but Johnson stays out another lap.
No, Johnson's coming down as well. Yeah, as well as the lap machine of James Roth going to come down in the 4 machine, so they're going to hit pit road. This will turn the lead over to Jake Houndshell, who was on pit road 12 laps ago. Now, the good news is he gets the race lead. The bad news is, where's any drafting help? There's nobody there in that shot, just the 0-2. There's a couple cars back there coming to the start-finish line, but he's all by his lonesome. If some other drivers are able to get themselves up line nose to tail, he's going to be a sitting duck.
Oh, yeah, and he's going to get run down pretty quickly if a group gets up. Another driver that came down is going to be the 16 of Graneri. He's also making his stop now, so he's going to go back to being a lap down, potentially. Will Johnson and Whitendorf, they're still the lead of the race at this moment in time. I think they're going to keep the lead of the race. I think Houndshell's too far back.
I don't even see him there in that shot. He's currently scored 55 seconds back. That interval obviously is going to close down as he's up to speeds. Now down to about 40 seconds, now 15 seconds. Still can't see him, though. I think the 33 and the 14, if they can get themselves hooked up, they can keep the 0-2 at bay.
Yeah, 0-2 is just now coming out of turn 2. The 33 is going into turn 3. They timed that perfectly. They're going to keep the lead of the race and still Johnson is going to be right behind. He's got a little bit separated, but still Hijinx continues to try and catch up to them, but he's got a lot of work to do because he's by himself. There's a lap car helping the two leaders right now, so a group of 3 will probably be formed up, and then you have a group of about 2 to 3 cars if a Granary can get up with the 00 and the 42. If those two can form a group with the 16, the 02 is a sitting duck at the moment.
Now, one thing we have to bear in mind with how far these drivers were able to stretch it before coming down pit road, they're going to have to be on pit lane at least one more time. And we've already seen a couple of drivers fall prey to speeding penalties in the case of Gerald Campbell and Christopher Morse Jr. So the execution was good for a number of these guys, but they're going to have to do it again as Whitendorf is the leader. Cooper Johnson right behind him there in second place. Jake Houndshell now cycles to third. Fourth place is going to be Jason Houndshell. He's got Bo Caro in fifth right behind him. Blaine Atkin, he's currently in sixth. He's got some drivers behind him trying to reel him in Campbell and Christopher Morse Jr. That's seventh and eighth. Ryan Gavel right now, the last car on the lead lap in ninth, and then the top 10 completed by Anthony Guarneri. He is currently one lap down, running the vicinity of fifth place, Bo Caro. And it's Ryan Lutz, he is 11th, James Roth in 12th, Jackson McLaren, Blake Ripley, and David White, the top 15. Last car running is Hank Steinmiller in the 16th position, and now it's looking like, barring a caution here, Anthony, it's going to come down between a seasoned veteran in John Whitendorf and a Vintage Cup Series rookie in Cooper Johnson.
Who would have thought that after 135 laps running, we would have two very different types of drivers at the front of the field pretty much by themselves? They have a lap machine in the group with them, but they are pulling away from the O2. They're almost got an entire straightaway between themselves and Jake Houndshell. So it could very well come down to these guys. Now, they do have to make another stop, and we've seen a lot of these drivers have struggled getting onto pit road. So if they can get on and off pit road, good for this last stop. If they do make it under green, then I think it is going to be between the 33 and the 14. Now, who do you think of these two might have the advantage? Because at Daytona, it doesn't really seem like it matters who's a rookie and who's not a rookie. But I think maybe Whitendorf knows how to keep cars behind him better. He might have the advantage to keep the 14 behind, but still, it looks like that Johnson's got some speed, though. He might be able to have a challenge for him in the later stages of the race if it does come down to it.
Well, as we learned from the NASCAR Cup Series at the Daytona 500, you just have to be in the right place at the right time to be able to win that race. But right now, if I'm kind of going between the two of them, I would have to go with that 33 of John Whitendorf. He's been here before at this racetrack, and he finished top 5 here 1 year ago. But on the flip side, Cooper Johnson's got 136 laps of experience. That's certainly enough, I think, for him to be able to put a challenge on the 33. And if you look at these three drivers right now, you've got John Whitendorf out of Morse Motorsports. You've got Cooper Johnson out of Country Roads Motorsports. So you're thinking, well, the X factor might be that 4 car. I don't know. That 4 car is actually out of Houndshell Racing of James Roth. So I don't know if he's got any alliance with either one of the Luminas ahead of him.
I don't think that he does, and if he does, it's I don't know who he would benefit. It really depends on how he can get into if he gets in between these guys. Right now, he looks like he's kind of comfortable to run back behind them and just let them run out this race, but does he make his way up to the front? Does he try to, mix between these two? Who knows? I don't know if he has any alliance, even though they're all Luminas. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have a manufacturer alliance, and if it's going to benefit anybody, it's going to be the two Houndshells behind him. That'd be Jake and Jason. If he can cause some problems for these two leaders, that might bring those two up and be able to catch the two leaders at the race. Now all of a sudden you have a 4, potentially 5 car fight for the lead of the race at the late stages of the race. So that could be a scenario that could happen. Or he could help Whitendorf, he could help Johnson. There's so many questions that we don't know the answer to, but I'm certainly thrilled to see how this plays out, because if he does benefit the Houndshells behind him, then oh my goodness, what a final few laps we're going to have, having the two leaders have to fight a lap car, doing everything in his power to slow them down.
Whitendorf and Johnson, along with the lap machine of Roth, they may be out in front, but they are not turning the fastest laps on the track right now. This group back here, 6th, 7th, and 8th, Campbell, Morse, and Atkin, they have consistently, for the last 10 laps, been turning 2 to 3/10 faster lap times than that front group is. Contact with Campbell, and I believe that was Cairo in the 42, who's now through the grass. That's going to kill the momentum of that second group for sure, but they were starting to close up the gap, which was about 30 seconds. They had closed it down to about 27 seconds. Now they got to get themselves regrouped, reformed. There's still plenty of time for them to be able to get up there, but that's certainly going to hinder their progress.
It's going to hinder their progress even more, as there was a couple cars in the wall. I believe they were lap down cars, though. The 7, I believe, got a little piece of the wall, as well as I can't quite tell which car that was.
Steinmiller in the 63, I think, on the back straightaway.
Somebody got into the wall out of turn 2, and that's definitely killed his momentum. How about Steinmiller, though? He's made his way up to 16th position, and you might think that, oh, that's not that great, but considering when we started with 23 cars and he's got a very damaged 63 car, he might be 15 laps down, but like we said earlier, points matter. So 16th position, that's fantastic considering the state of that race car. So keeping it going, a DNF now would solidify him 16th place, but you know that he wants to be around just in case there's any more positions up for the grabbing. He's 15 laps down the leader, but he's 11 laps down back to David White. So if David White has any problems, all he's got to do is run 11 laps more than that. And then obviously the other drivers ahead of him, you have McLaren, Roth, Lutz, and even the leaders. If the leaders have an incident that happens and they DNF because they might not have a fast repair or their car just won't be up to speed, those are positions that he could get too. So Steinmiller working his way up. We have to keep an eye on him because this is a bit of a story that we have to cover because this sets up the rest of the season.
Yeah, if Steinmiller finds himself in the championship battle near the end of the year, we could look back at this first race because he was en route, if he had DNF'd, of finishing in the 21st, 22nd position. 16th is going to net you a lot more points than finishing outside of the top 20. You see, these three have gotten themselves organized again, of Campbell, Morris, and Atkin. Now, they're running lap times similar to the lead pack now. We'll see if they'll start to be able to pick it up here and now getting their momentum back. We know Blaine Atkin, one of the best pushers in the business here today. Christopher Morris Jr. has kept his car out of trouble. He's been really fast, whether he's been running by himself or with a group. And Gerald Campbell has been up front a couple of times in this race. That last time around, Whitendorf ran a 43.840. Campbell leading this pack a 43.879. So they're just a tick off of that lead group now, trying to get that momentum back. And the reason is, you can see here that there's another driver that has been added to this lead group, the 12 of Ryan Gavel, who right now, contact to himself and James Roth. That's going to kill that lead group's momentum, as right now that 12's trying to get up into the vicinity of the 42 of Cairo. He actually just got around him, move him into the free pass position should we see the caution, but he was very nearly the caution right there.
And that was how, he's had a couple of bangs throughout this last run, and he's been the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. And I got to say, that penalty certainly hurt Campbell and Morse. They were leading the race. They were set to be the net leaders once they came off of pit road. If not the net leaders, they were going to be right up there in the lead group. And now they are very far behind this lead group of cars. They have a long way to go, but they are trekking forward in that general direction. Blaine Atkin as well. He had a really fast car, and then obviously that spin happened very early on the run after the restart happened. So he's trying to make his way back to the front, but he's definitely got some speed. He's hooked up with this group of cars, but those penalties, it just shows you how much a penalty can hurt you. They haven't lost the lead of the lead lap. That much they still have, but they are so far back that barring a yellow flag, they might run out of laps before they can catch up. Because if this league group of two cars, if they can keep getting other drivers, they're past Steinmiller now. If they can keep adding lap traffic to their group, then that's going to make them so much faster than maybe a 3 or a 4 car tandem behind them. They've already got one. If they can add maybe 1 or 2 more, then I don't know. Like you said earlier, it might just be between Whitendorf and Johnson at a little bit of a lap down car for a little extra seasoning.
How about adding 3? Because they're about to reel in this second group that we're looking at. Jason Hounshell, Jake Hounshell, and the lap machine of Anthony Guarneri. There you can see Campbell, Morris, and Atkin back there. If they can reel in this second group, they would have 6 drivers that would be able to be nose to tail and try and cut down what right now is about a 25-second gap from them to that lead pack.
Yeah, it's a lot of games of aerodynamics going on right now, and we still have one more green flag stop that they're going to have to make guaranteed. From there, it's going to be, I believe they can make it to the end of the race if they do one more stop. If we have cautions late in the race, then they're definitely going to want to come down and get tires. But as it goes right now, this could go green all the way to the end of the race. It's certainly setting itself up to be that way. And this big group of cars behind him now, they might have something to say otherwise, because they have definitely stacked their group here. And goodness me, a lot of shuffling happening in here. And those faster cars are able to get around no problem, but now those lap machines are trying to stay with them. And I don't know if those lap cars are going to wait for them.
We'll see if the Hound Shells can latch on to this group here, and if they can't, then that very well might drop them outside of the top 5. Right now, they're in 6th and 7th, and doesn't look like they are able to latch on to the draft just yet. They're still battling with the 16 of Guinary, and that 0-2 back there of Jake Hounshaw actually is at a bit of a deficit as far as tires, too. He's got about 8-9 lap older tires than the drivers around him. But the gap right now is just a tick under 25 seconds from Gerald Campbell in this group up to the lead group, which holds John Whitendorf and Cooper Johnson first and second place, as well as the current Lucky Dog driver of Ryan Gabble. We are almost 3/4 of the way through the Vintage 500 presented by Richmar Florists here at Daytona. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back. You won't miss a thing. We'll be back for potentially the final pit stop of the day here at Daytona, as we're going to go FRN side by side.
It's a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 2021 NNSCRA Daytona 500, Saturday, February 20th, exclusively on Flatout Racing Network.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
It's a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 20.
Caution is out here with 50 laps to go. We're still trying to figure out who it was that had the incident. We had the 0-2 of Hounshaw on pit road, the 12 was slow off of turn 2, and the 7 was slow off of turn 2.
As I'm looking at it, I've got my replay pulled up. I think going through turn 1. Oh, I think. Who was that? Was that the 83 of David White? No. Who was it? Was
Ryan
a
Lutz,
White
36, I believe.
Yeah, I think that he washed up the racetrack and then just tagged ever so slightly the 7 of McLaren and shot McLaren straight up into the wall.
And what is it they say? This caution changes everything because we had only 6 drivers on the lead lap at the time. two drivers had a 20-second gap between themselves and the other four. And with Ryan Gavel, his awareness to get on the brakes and not get involved in that, he'll be on the getting the lucky dogs. We'll have 7 drivers on the lead lap, and they're going to be up each other's gearboxes here with less than 50 to go.
If you're looking at the Vegas odds, then it's very much in favor of that 3 car now. I mean, so he was so far behind that I don't think it would take a Herculean effort to pull up to the lead 2. All 3 of those cars, Atkin, Morse, and Campbell, who has actually been passed by the 00 since we went to commercial. So I don't know when that pass happened, but leaders are on pit road. It's going to be Whitendorf, Johnson. I'm sure that Morse, Atkin, Houndshell, Campbell are going to follow them. Gavel as well. No, Gavel stays out. He's going around the pace car.
Probably because of getting the free pass. I think he's going to pit the next time around.
Gotcha. So Johnson comes down pit road. Whitendorf, Morse, Atkin, Houndshell. Those are the top 5. Gavel has now gone into 6th place. Campbell's slow. Did he stay out? I think he stayed out. He's on the apron. I don't know what's going on with a 31. He's still in 7th place, though.
He was, according to this, he was just on pit road.
That must have been a fuel-only stop.
Yeah. Well, he spent almost 23 seconds on pit lane.
Interesting.
Was he just on pit road when that caution came out? I don't know. This is interesting.
I'm going to back it up and see if he was. He was on pit road. He got 4 tires. No, I think he went down a closed pit.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right, because they're right now scoring him last car on the lead lap. Where we would, under normal circumstances, with where he was running, we would have him scored as the race leader. And now you see Cooper Johnson going around him, and there goes John Whitendorf.
Yeah, he came down pit road when the lights were on, so definitely not open. Another car in front of him did. I think that might have been Lutz that was getting his car fixed. So there was a reason why the 36 was on pit road, but I think he was just watching that car and just subconsciously followed him onto pit road, and as a result of that, he's going to be a lap down now.
Yeah. Ooh, wow. Costly mistake there for Gerald Campbell, as that's going to turn the race lead over to Cooper Johnson, and now Campbell's going to have himself in a dogfight with drivers like Jake Houndshell and Bo Cairo, Anthony Guarneri, and Ryan Lutz to try and get the next lucky dog, as it's like it will be 6 drivers on the lead lap with the inclusion of Ryan Gavel when we eventually go back green. But, we ran, that third quarter of the race, green flag. We were talking during the commercial break, though, that it obviously was not without incidents. We just didn't see cautions come out for those incidents. Most of them solo cars off the racing surface. But now we're into that final quarter of the race. And we know when we get to this point, doesn't matter if you have a super speedway, a mile and a half, a mile, a short track, the aggressiveness is going to pick up. A lot of what we saw in the first half of the race is what we're going to be seeing, and maybe even on a larger scale here, because there's now a race win on the line. And in the case of that 3 car, as you said, he was the driver that led lap 100. He's going to be hungry to try and get that $25 bonus, close out the deal here, and walk away with the big paycheck.
Not only that, but he's wanting to make a statement. We've been talking about all night the battle for making a statement. He wants to be a back-to-back champion, and now he's really kind of put himself in a good position, because Gerald Campbell, with that going down pit road under when the pit lane was closed, he's definitely going to put himself in a horrible situation to try and get back up to Morse. So Morse looking good in that battle between those two, the former champions of a G4 series. But pace car is off. We're going back to green. Johnson, Whitendorf, and Atkin, your top 3. We're back to green flag racing. Johnson got a good run off of the restart, but that's not going to last very long, because here comes Whitendorf and Atkin on the inside of the racetrack. Actually, that's the O2 of Houndshell. Atkin's actually pretty far back when you consider there are 3 lap down cars between him and the top 2. So a lot of work for that 44 to do if he wants to get back up to the top 2 and battle. But so far down the back straightaway, they're going 2 wide, possibly even 3 wide. Atkin's looking for it.
We also almost had some contact for the race lead there between Cooper Johnson and I believe that was the lap machine trying to get around him of Houndshell. On board here with Blaine Atkin. Look at the hands there working inside the cockpit of that 44 as he'll try and make the pass on the 4 of James Roth. Not for position. That is a lap down machine, the Kodak Chevy Lumina. Atkin right now in that 3rd position. And per 1987 rules, those lap down cars line up single file with the lead lap cars, all intermingled, and so we're having races within races going on right now for Jake Houndshell. He's trying to be the first car 1 lap down. The 42 behind him wants that free pass position.
Yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag of drivers right now, and the battle, what would be for the lead, if not wasn't for the lead, it's a battle to get back on. Now they're in front of the leader, which is, actually, yeah, it's going to be Johnson, the leader. But he's got 2 lap down cars in front of him that are in their own race. This is basically a multi-class race, if we're going to put it that way. They're all the same speed, but 2 races going on. And right now, the 33 Whitendorf sees that he could use those cars as a pick. He's going to try and maybe get around the 14, maybe get some draft off those 2 in front of him. But it's helping Johnson because he's got some help in front. He's able to keep the speed. So he's the leader of the race, but it's almost like he's running 3rd in that line, knowing that he can get the draft off of him, giving him that extra bit of momentum. It's going to be hard for the 33 to get around him.
Documented about that straightaway speed that Christopher Morse Jr. is able to get in that 3 car, and he is to the outside of Blaine Atkin. That is the battle for 3rd place. Right behind them, looming inside the top 5, the 12 of Ryan Gavel, and then behind them, last car on the lead lap, the 00 of Jason Houndshell. What a race he has had right now, en route to maybe be able to get a top 5 if he can stay where he is.
Yeah, he just has to be clean throughout the rest of this race. He's had a lot of ups and downs in this race. To be in the 6th position right now has got to feel good. Looking down at the leaders of this race, that's a whole hornet's nest of cars he's got to work his way through, including lap down machines, but he knows he can do it. He's got a fast car. He just needs to have a lucky break to get around this traffic. Blaine Atkin is going to be in the lead of the race. Morse is going to be right behind him. Look at this gaggle of cars at the front of the field, and the 42 is sideways into 3.
This is where it could be so treacherous. It doesn't have to be a mistake made by you to take you out of the running of the Vintage 500. You saw the 42 loose. He's trying to battle with the 02 to get the free pass position based on the fact that right now he is a lap down since the 44 race leader Blaine Atkin has barely edged ahead. Houndshell trying to throw the block to stay on the lead lap. Atkin says nuh-uh. He's going to go to driver's right, try and put the 02 a lap down, heading off of 2.
Look at the run he gets off of 2. He's got to try to get down the back straightaway. He's got the help of Morse pushing him down the back straightaway, trying to get any bit of momentum. You got lap cars on the inside, lead lap cars on the outside. Who's got the advantage? Who's going to get to the lead? Oh, Morse. I'm sorry, Atkin. A little bit contact with the outside wall, trying to stay away from the 2 cars on the inside line. The inside line still with the advantage, though, as the 02 and the 42 still pulling an advantage. That'd be Houndshell and Cairo. I don't know why I spaced there, but Cairo trying to keep going. Oh, sideways is Atkins.
A little bit of a smoke show for the rest of the field there as he drifts it through turn 1, but keeps it straight, keeps it going, and for the time being, keeps the race lead. And you're probably wondering, well, these guys up here like Houndshell and Cairo, under normal circumstances, wouldn't there be a driver's etiquette to let these leaders on by? But these guys realize there's still a shot for them to get the caution, get back on the lead lap, and have a shot of winning this thing. As Atkin into the wall there through 3 and 4, he may have used up his stuff a little bit too early there in that 44 machine. Now Christopher Morse Jr. puts his pole-sitting machine to the front.
And he is running down the back end of the 42 of Cairo, telling him, look, I've got the faster car. You better get out of the way. I know I need to get to the front of the field. I need to put you between me and the guys behind me. Needs to get that advantage to the inside. He's already the inside of Houndshell, trying to get around him, put him a lap down, still fighting down the inside of the racetrack, down the back straightaway. He's got the 14 of Johnson right behind him, though. No one willing to give an inch. The lap traffic still trying to stay right with him. And the lead lap cars trying to figure out a way to get around them. The 02 of Houndshell now is the free pass position, but that 42 trying to stay on the lead lap.
Right now, if you're keeping score at home, the drivers that are battling for the race win currently are the 3, 14, 33, 44, 12, and 00. Those are the drivers on the lead lap right now. You could also add the 42 of Bo Caro, but he is on the tail of the lead lap just ahead of race leader Christopher Morris Jr., so obviously not battling for the race lead currently. Everybody else, they were all battling to be that driver first car one lap down to get the lucky dog if a caution happens. And the way that they are racing and how loose they are looking down a straightaway where you're supposed to be able to have it be an easy ride down there. Oh, we may get one, and man, we nearly had one right there as Cairo up into the wall still keeps it together. We still remain green.
And he's still going forward, so that's one car eliminated, and that's going to be horrible for Cairo. He needed to be up there to try and have a shot. He's going to fall all the way down in 9th place, so far behind the first lap down car, which would be Jake Hounshell, so he's got to get back up to that lead group if he wants to have a shot. But this is good news for Morris, because he's got himself back into some clean air, but the 14 smells blood. He knows that he can pass him easily now. There's no lap down cars to help you with draft now, so now it's all about, can I keep the guy behind me? Behind me, he's got a lot of cars hungry for that lead position.
Here's the big question that we really should look at in terms of the laps remaining. We know that when we ended up having that round of green flag pit stops, the drivers kind of seemed to split the final run in half, coming to pit road somewhere between 37 to 40 laps into that run. We went back green flag racing with 48 laps to go. So the big question is, was that their final time on pit road, or will they still have to make one more pit stop between now and the checkered flag?
They might have to. I think the longest that anyone's gone is 42 laps, maybe 43 at the most. So they're going to have to mind themselves until they can get to that point where they need to come down. Like you said, I think some of these drivers are going to split it in half, knowing that they can have fresher tires. You got to make a stop anyway. You might as well split it in half, see if you can get some track position on the racetrack and on pit road. Oh, the 44 is in the wall! He saves it somehow. Atkin has had that car sideways more than going forward, and he's still somehow running on the racetrack. Whitendorf's now the leader. I don't know how he was able to get around so quickly, but Whitendorf from third to fourth, the lead of the race in a matter of a straightaway.
John Whitendorf now trying to hold off Jake Hounshell, who's trying to get his lap back. Second place is under contest. Morse Jr. on the bottom. Cooper Johnson on the top. Remember, the 33 and the 14, they were working together prior to those green flag pit stops, so you got to wonder if they're going to try and find each other and hook up again. But now they've got Morse Jr. up here that's still got some drafting help in the form of the 12 of Ryan Gavel. So it's not like Whitendorf and Cooper Johnson are out by their lonesome anymore.
Oh, no, not at all. This race is heating up so much in the last few laps. It's almost like they're racing for the end of the race. You got to think that they only have a few laps left. So this intensity is going to creep up in these drivers. They know they're coming out to the end of the race very, very soon. Once we get to lap 70, 30 laps to go, you got to consider how hard they were racing to get to lap 100. They were racing like it was the last lap way before lap 100. Do you think, Seth, that we're going to see this level of intensity stay the way it is with the lap down traffic? You've got the lead lap cars. You've got them sideways as the 4 was sideways going into 3. Who gives? What gives? Does anything give?
I don't think anything gives at this point. I think these drivers realize the situation. Ryan Gavel was the one that got the wall there, and he's starting to drop back. So because of that, you've really only theoretically at this point in time got 5 drivers that are up here for the hunt for this victory. So why not be aggressive? Try and pick up those spots. If you can get yourself out there in front in clean air, then you could just concentrate on blocking and trying to keep everybody else behind you. Now, the big question still is whether they can make it on fuel. So maybe it's about positioning yourself for that final pit stop. Another thing we got to document, 2 more drivers have gone to the garage area. Jackson McLaren went to pit lane about 18 laps ago. He made the hard left-hand turn, will finish 16th. Blake Ripley, our Duel 2 winner, he is going to be out of the race as well. Right now scored in 14th, but about 9 laps away from picking up that spot is Hank Steinmiller. So Steinmiller about to move up inside of the top 15 despite being 16 laps down, as right now race lead is going to be Christopher Morse Jr., who with the aid of the lap car swung around the outside of John Whitendorf back to the point.
That's a great move by the 3 machine, and he's able to use that lap machine to his advantage. The draft is going to help significantly if you're in the lead of the race. It also might hurt you a little bit, knowing that you're locked behind a lap car. Even though he's helping you along, you still want to be able to put your car where you need to, and you're kind of just at the mercy of wherever the lap car is going to take you at that point, because whether or not you like it, he is the lead of the pack. Houndshell is. So, maybe not for long. I say that. Here comes the 3 of Morse around the outside. He's going to take the lead of the pack, bringing the 33 with him. I think he heard what we were saying. He's like, all right, I'll show you how it's done. And now to the lead, officially to the lead of the pack, goes the 3 machine.
And I think this is bad news for the rest of the drivers behind them, because the 3 and the 33 are teammates. And so no doubt these two are going to work together until we get down to the closing stages of this race. So for guys like Cooper Johnson, Blaine Atkin, and Ryan Gavel, they're going to have no choice but to work together to try and get around these two Morse Motorsports teammates.
No, you know they're not going to be teammates with 10 laps to go, though. That's for sure. But until then, they're still hounding that first and second position. They got a lap car behind them now. A couple drivers got a little bit loose on that last out of turn 4. I believe that was the 12 of Gavel getting loose again. Also back there, I believe that was that was Anthony Graneri that got a little sideways coming out of turn 4. So these drivers, the tires are starting to fall off like we've seen all race long. They're getting a little bit harder to handle, these cars are. And given the fact that we're now coming up to 30 laps to go, that last pit stop, it looms. When do you take it? Do you have to take it? Do you think you can save enough? I don't think that they can, considering the way that they've been racing, but it's definitely going to be a roulette wheel. Once you come on the pit road, as the 02 and the 33 almost squeeze together through 3 and 4.
Here's the thing that I'm wondering, you can weigh in on this as well. We saw when the first round of pit stops took place under green flag conditions, Ryan Gavel came down and took on his first faster pair. If you come down pit road here under green flag conditions for this final pit stop, if indeed they can't make it the rest of the way, if drivers do have a faster pair left, do you use it then, or do you save it for the possibility that there could be an overtime green-white checkered and take it on there? I mean, we've only got 6 drivers on the lead lap currently. The furthest back you would drop if you gave up track position to take that faster pair late in the race is 6th. I would think you could certainly pass 5 cars in 2 laps if you've got yourself a mile-per-hour advantage with a brand-new clean race car.
Certainly so. I think that if they have anything left, they save it. Especially because we saw it in the dual races. We both got a green-white checker finish in both the dual races. So, given that that's the track record, it would make sense that it's in the back of your mind that could go to this race as well. Drivers are going to try their hardest to get around, and sometimes the way that these cars work is that you might have a slip-up. You might think that you're clear, and you might not be clear. Your car might dance up the racetrack and into somebody else, and you didn't intend it. So having that fast repair at your fingertips, knowing that, okay, if something happens, I'm okay. That's a safety net, and that's going to give them more confidence to maybe try bolder moves, knowing that they don't have an immediate end to their race if they have an incident. Certainly for the 3 of Morse, I don't think he's used a single one so far this race, and if he has, he's only used 1, so he's definitely good for the end of the race. Atkin, maybe not so much. That car may only have 1 or maybe not at all, so it's a different scenario for some of these drivers and how much they're willing to race, knowing that they don't have a safety net or knowing that they possibly could lose the race because they're being too cautious.
I think that right now for Blaine Atkin, John Whitendorf, Ryan Gavel, they're the ones that are kind of having to weigh when they want to use that second faster pair, because we know that Blaine Atkin was up in the wall moments ago, Ryan Gavel was as well, so they've obviously sustained some damage. The driver that may have the easiest choice is that 3 that you were just talking about, because I don't think he has used a faster pair. If he's got 2 at his disposal, if you have to make a green flag pit stop, take on the first one then, and then take on the second one if you get a late green-white checkered. Why not?
And the way he's running, though, I don't think he needs to. There's no way that we've seen this car take any sort of damage. He is a rocket in a straight line. We've seen him pass cars like they were standing still going down the backstretch when he was running by himself. And he's at the lead of the race. He's been able to keep Atkin at bay. He's not been able to really have a challenge from the 44. I don't know how much Atkin's pushing, but it seems like the straightaways, the 3 cars definitely got the advantage. Through the turns, though, I've noticed that the cars behind them are a little bit faster in the turns, but if you get that straightaway speed, especially coming out of corner exit, whoa, the 24 slammed the wall!
David White right in front of the leaders getting into the wall, but fortunately everyone was able to slice around him and be able to continue on. That did hold up Third place, Ryan Gavel. Fourth place, John Whitendorf. And fifth place, Cooper Johnson. Is really loose there was Blaine Akin in the 44. And now we're starting to really see the tires go away for these drivers. So at this point in time, we know, Anthony, the fuel window is open. If they wanted to come to pit road, they could make it the rest of the way. But we know that if they so chose, they could stay out another 15 to 20 laps.
And what's the consequence of not pitting with the group? We saw it earlier in the race where we made those green flag stops. They were two very distinct different pods of cars, and they all came down pit road at separate times, and it made for a really spread out field in the later stages of that green flag run. We saw a 23-second lead by the top two. So do you come down pit road by yourself, risk losing the draft, or do you stay out with the group, potentially stay with them, being able to have a chance to get into the larger group, even though that it might not pay off and you might have something happen going on to pit road? I don't know what you would opt to do. Maybe make an alliance with somebody. Try and get them on the radio and say, look, we need to come down now. We need to make a stop in order to make it to the end of the race. Stay with me. We can do it. There's a lot of scenarios going through here, but right now we got a new leader, and that's Atkin. He's finally got around the 3, but the 3 around the outside with the help of the 0-2 still leads the lap and might be in the lead of the race by the time we get to the end of this one.
Right now, Jake Hounshell is the one that is giving us this great battle for the lead. He's been able to go down and pull the 44 of Blaine Akin. Then he moves up and pulls the 3 of Christopher Morris Jr., keeping those two guys side by side. And while that's obviously giving us some great battling for the race lead, it's also benefiting Jake Hounshell, because with him controlling the draft, he's right now still scored on the lead lap, would not have to rely on a lucky dog. And the thing that's important about that too is with this 0-2 of Jake Hounshell, let's say a caution comes out right now and he's on the lead lap. That means he gets to line up with all the lead lap machines. If he's the first car 1 lap down, the caution comes out and he gets the free pass. He starts at the very tail end of the field behind the lead lap and lap down cars. That's a lot of a gap that he would have to make up. So right now, with him maintaining where he is, that's all about getting himself the best possible starting track position if a caution were to come out between now and the end of the race.
Absolutely. We've seen track position play a pretty big factor. We didn't think it would play that big of a factor in this race, given that it was a super speedway, but you got to consider these guys are running it like it's a speedway or even a short track in some cases. So that track position has certainly helped a lot of these drivers out, and having it at the end of the race is definitely going to set you up for a really good finish. At the very least, you can defend easier, as the 3 kind of looks like
he got the wall.
Oh, hey, there's a lot of right side damage on that 3 machine now.
Maybe the first extensive damage that 3 car has gotten all race long, and it happens at the completion of lap 178, dropping him back to the 5th position. But as we are about 20 laps away, I want to just give a couple of shout outs here to some drivers that, as mentioned, took part in the G-Force Grand National Series and then moved over here to these 87 cars for the second season of the 87 Cup Series that are doing tremendous jobs today. How about the rookie Cooper Johnson right now in 3rd, Ryan Gavel making his first G-Force start in 5th, Jason Hounshell in that 00 right now in 6th, Bo Cairo in 9th, James Roth in 11th, and David White in 12th. These guys, while they may not necessarily be up here leading all these laps out in front, they are doing a great job in their G-Force 87 Series debuts here at Daytona.
Absolutely, they are. It's a completely different car that these are compared to the ones that you run in the Grand National Series. So having to adapt to the new car, having to figure out its little quirks, and then being able to be competitive. These drivers have done it. Now, it hasn't been a perfect race for these drivers, and they have had to learn the hard way that these 87s are very unforgiving. But definitely kudos to them for making their way up through the field and really having a solid run. Another driver I think that we need to mention now, we've had another retiree out of the race. That's Ryan Lutz. I think you mentioned that he was out of the race earlier. But Lutz, with him going out, Steinmiller now has the ability to get into the top 13. He started this journey in the 23rd position. 21st position was about the highest he was going to get. Now he's finding himself well in the top half of the field. That's something that, never quit, never give up. He may not win this race, but Steinmiller...
Oh no! Back at the front! Blaine Akin, Gerald Campbell, John Whitendorf collected up. Caution's gonna fly with less than 20 to go.
And the 33's in the grass coming up the racetrack, and he hold on to it. He does. Whitendorf saves it, but a lot of damaged race cars towards the end of the race up at the front of the field. Atkin trudging along through turn 3, trying to get onto the front straightaway. Houndshell with a lot of damage on the back end. Johnson got through that. A lot of these other drivers didn't, though.
There was a fourth car involved. I couldn't tell who it was. The 31, 33, and 44, I know for absolute certain were involved. Campbell being a lap machine in that equation, but there was a fourth driver that got a piece of it. I thought it was possibly the 02 of Jake Houndshell, but now I'm not certain. The replay will obviously show us.
It was coming out of 4. I'm not really rightfully sure what happened there.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the 44 went up into the outside wall in the back straightaway from what I saw.
He got a shunt from behind. He got hit from Houndshell in the back end, and this shot the car up into the wall going down the back straightaway.
And there you see, yeah, the other car that was involved was the 02 of Houndshell through the grass, but he was able to actually, after doing some road coursing that Travis Pastrana would be proud of, through the grass up into turn 3, he was able to continue on, but wow. I mean, we knew the intensity was going to kick up, and even though you only had 6 drivers on the lead lap, you had those lap machines intermingled as well, so you still had a big pack, and just one little mistake, and all of a sudden, our front runners might not necessarily be up at the front, and we got some new faces that are leading the field.
Yeah, we do. We have Whitendorf is still credited as the leader somehow. Not sure how he is, but Whitendorf still with the lead credit. Gavel now is in second place. How in the world has Gavel found himself into second place? He has gotten some incredible runs in the later stages of this race. Has a fresh car as well, so he's going to be up at the front battling for this lead if he can indeed get back onto off of pit road. Morse on pit road. Everyone's on pit road except for the 31 and the 16, which I believe they've already come down and made a stop.
Well, I'm going to throw out a theory of why I think John Whitendorf was still the race leader. We're on board with him, and watch how this car actually never wrecks. It actually goes through the grass but stays straight. Now remember, it is frozen field, so at the timing of the caution, John Whitendorf would have still been the race leader, and because there he never spun out and actually was able to keep the car going, I think that with the timing of the yellow flag coming out, he still would have ended up being the race leader under caution, hence is why he was able to go back up and take the top position, being the race leader when pits were open.
That's incredible. That was a good piece of driving for him to keep that car going straight and save it. The banking definitely helped out a lot there. He was able to hit it flat and was able to keep his momentum going. So good piece of driving. We can't say it enough for these drivers. These cars are a pain to drive. They're fun to watch, but you definitely don't want to drive them for as long as these drivers have been driving them. We have to remember, these guys have been at it 183 laps so far. Their arms, for any viewer that's watching this race, yes, it's a simulator, but if you have a sim rig with force feedback in it, your arms are screaming at this point in time in the race. These cars, they don't have power steering. It's at a Daytona track that has bumps in the turns that they used to before the repave. And these cars are just a whale to drive. To get them to keep going straight is a Herculean effort, and they're doing it at well over 200 miles an hour. And oh, by the way, it's in the draft, and you have to be careful when you go 3 wide in order to not slide up and hit anybody. And you don't have any aerodynamics, which makes it just a little bit more fun.
You know, obviously, different people have their favorite camera angles when it comes to racing. When it comes to this series, nothing beats the cockpit. I love to watch the hands of these drivers going through the corners, trying to line up the bumpers. You see so much more counter steering with these race cars than you do really in any other series. And just the fact that we've been able to see 2-car tandems, we've been able to see double wide and 3 wide racing, and somehow, someway they all managed to keep it together. To your point, just a true testament to these drivers. And there has to be, for some of these guys, there has to be some dirt racing background, whether it be in real life or whether it be on the sim, just the way that some of these guys have been able to make the saves that they have, no more so than what we saw out of Jake Houndshell and John Whitendorf there through the infield grass on the back straightaway with this, our latest caution. But we're setting them up now, Anthony, for what's going to be a 16-lap shootout. The caution coming out puts Anthony Guarnieri back on the lead lap. That'll be 7 drivers on the lead lap behind Morse Jr., Johnson, Houndshell, that being Jason Houndshell, Blaine Acken, Ryan Gabel, and John Whitendorf. And this may be a rhetorical question, but are we done with yellows?
Absolutely not. These guys are not going to let up. You have 16 laps to go when we get to the line. They know that all the cards now have to be thrown on the table. Anything that you've saved up this entire race, you now have to use it. Fast repairs, forget about them. Staying safe, forget about it. You are now in the point where you need to get to the front and stay there. Green flag, back in the air, 16 laps to go at the Vintage 500 in Daytona, and Morse with a good jump. He's got a lap car between him and Johnson. That's going to be a big sigh of relief for him, but I don't think it can be too big because that 02 is definitely up to speed, and we've seen him try to get to the front, and in fact, he's already going to the front on the outside, trying to get around. Does Johnson use that as a pick?
Jake Houndshell does not want to rely on a free pass to get back on the lead lap. He wants to get it himself. He has been a thorn in the side of these race leaders for the last 20 laps or so, but he's been racing them clean. Now, he didn't get the fortune of getting the lucky dog under that latest yellow because he was involved in the wreck when Neri got the free pass. So now the 02 going back to work on trying to get back onto the lead lap. Got a car coming to pit road. That's the 42 of Bo Cairo, apparently having to serve a pit road penalty, a pass-through penalty, and that's unfortunate for him because he was actually going to be the driver to battle with Houndshell for the free pass position, almost 3 wide into turn 1. And we got a spinner, almost. Blaine Acken in the 44, he hangs on to it. No, he doesn't. He wrecks with Gerald Campbell and Anthony Guarneri. Caution flies again.
And that is, I think, great news for the 02. I think he was ahead of the leader, so he's going to be on the lead lap.
And that would mean that Bo Cairo, who just came to pit road for the pass-through, he'd be the lucky dog.
Fantastic bit of driving from the 02, able to put him on, but you got to feel for Blaine Acken. He had it saved, and then he got into the wall. Another driver came in and tagged him, and I don't know if that 44's got any fast repair left. He's got some damage still, so I don't think he used one in that last stop. We have to see if he uses one here, if he has one left, but he certainly didn't want to have to use it this early on.
Boy, it looked like he almost got into the 4 of James Roth, and then you had Campbell and Guarneri trying to check up behind him, but with the speeds these drivers carry into the corner, you can't really stop the race car on a dime. Guarneri and Campbell make contact, then slide into Blaine Acken, so all 3 drivers getting some pretty extensive damage. All 3 of them, 2 of them on the lead lap. Campbell 2 laps down, collected up in that one. We'll take another camera angle, and yeah, to your point, I'm not certain that 44 does have a fast repair left, and so he may have what he has for the remainder of this race. Just traveled up the track a little too high, brushed that outside wall, and I don't know if you've got the answer for this, Anthony, but I kind of wonder. I know obviously turning left to get off the wall plays a part into it, but why does the car snap to the left so quickly when you're trying to get it off that outside retaining wall?
It's kind of 2 things, really. You have basically force pulling you onto the wall. The aerodynamics of when you get close to the wall, suddenly you have wind that's not pulling you onto the side of the on the side of the car, the right side of the car. So then when you get close to the wall, that air kind of goes away. It creates a bit of a vortex, and if you're against the wall, then you don't have any wind at all. When you get off the wall, all of a sudden now you have a bunch of wind pushing your car against the right side, and if you've got your wheel turned more than you would normally, your car's going to snap around, and it's going to have your car go straight to the inside of the racetrack. It's something that has plagued a lot of drivers when they get close to a wall. You see in NASCAR a lot that there's drivers that their favorite line is right around the outside with the wall, but they never really get close enough to it to really cause that air to really pull the car around. But once you get contact with a wall, there's obviously no air on the right side of your car, and then all of a sudden you find yourself with air, and it just snaps around on you because it's just a sudden force. It's like hitting a vortex. If you ever been walking in a city and you come across a building where there's a wind blowing through all the skyscrapers, then that's about the same effect that these cars feel when you pull them off of the wall after being riding against it.
So it looks like 5 drivers decided to stay out to keep their track position. Christopher Morse Jr., Cooper Johnson, Jason Houndshell, and John Whitendorf. Ryan Gabel and Blaine Acken, they came to pit road. They'll be 5th and 6th. Jake Houndshell, he obviously remained on the lead lap when that caution came out, so he's going to come around and line up in 7th. And Anthony Guarneri right now is on pit road getting damage repaired on his 16. Checking to see if indeed Bo Caro is going to be the recipient of the free pass here. He should be. I don't know if being on pit road serving a penalty would take him out of eligibility for the lucky dog or not. If he does get the lucky dog, we will have 9 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green of 13 drivers that are still running. And if the lights go out top the pace car this time, it will be with 11 laps to go. So let's kind of set the stage here with the drivers that we have up here at the front. Christopher Morse Jr. started this race from the pole, kind of faded back around maybe 8th to 10th place, just kept himself out of trouble, and then charged up to the front in the second half. Has had, without a doubt, probably the cleanest car on the racetrack this entire time. Not to say he hasn't been without incident, but he has, for the most part, kept himself out of trouble as opposed to everybody else. But he's got a couple of hungry rookies right there behind him in Cooper Johnson and Jason Hounshell. In this moment, at this time, knowing that the defending champion is right up ahead of him, what is going through the mind of these two young guns? Because neither one of them won in the Grand National Series in 2020 and 2021. They've got a shot here to put themselves in victory lane at Daytona International Speedway in what probably is going to be one of the toughest races of the season for them.
Absolutely, and I think the mindset is get to the front and stay there. They see the lead. It's right there with them, but they have a veteran right in front of them, and not only a veteran, but a former champion of the series that they have to get around. And we've seen that 3-car be so quick in the straightaways that it's going to take 2 cars or more to maybe put a train together and get around the 3 machine. And one thing that we've noticed is that Christopher Morse knows how to handle these race cars. He's been around them for so long. He knows how to drive them. These other drivers may not be so familiar with the characteristics of them. So while they're struggling to figure out how to make moves in these cars, Morse is sitting comfortably knowing that what he does is going to transfer into that race car. But for Johnson, Houndshow, they know that if they have a shot, they are going to take it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bump and run at 200 miles an hour.
We ended up seeing one back in the first duel last week, a bump and run off turn 4 as green flag in the air. We're back underway. The question is, which flag are we racing to? Are we racing to the next caution, or are we racing to the white flag? Block thrown back there for third place. That's Jason Hounshell trying to hold off John Whitendorf. Whitendorf going to have none of it.
He's right there on the inside. He's trying to hold on to it. Whitendorf trying to get to the front of the field. He's been around the block as well with these cars. I believe it. I mean, he's a veteran of the series as well. He's trying to use that outside momentum to the outside of the 3, the 33, the teammates getting around, and now to the lead goes Whitendorf.
There are no teammates when you get down to the end of the race, especially one that has as much meaning as the Daytona 500, as Whitendorf to the point. And now we got a car coming to pit road, the 44 of Blaine Atkin having to serve a pass-through penalty. Tough break there for a guy that's been up in the top 3 pretty much the entirety of this race, as now it's Ryan Gavel. He's going to jump to the outside of Whitendorf looking for the top spot.
Look at the speed that the 12 car carried through the triangle.
Oh, we got a car almost losing it back there. I think that might have possibly been Jake Hounshell. He keeps it together, though.
We're still green. These drivers down the back straight, they rocket down the super stretch here. The teammates on the inside are working together. The 12 has lost all momentum that it had, trying to get it back on the outside of the racetrack, but it's just too much on the inside for him to try and overcome as you got the teammates. Then Johnson, now Gavel, and Hounshell. These top 5 are going to settle out the win for this race if everything stays green.
Right now, these 5 on the lead lap and enjoying nearly 3.5 seconds back to their next competitor, which would have been Jake Hounshell after his near moment, and he's actually coming to pit road, is the 0-2. So very quickly, our lead lap cars are dropping by the wayside. It's just these 5 drivers now really to settle it out, barring a caution in the next 8.5 laps.
Whitendorf is a sitting duck. He knows that if Morse can link up with somebody, then that lead's going to evaporate. You've got Johnson, who wants to spoil the fun for the teammates, and Ryan Gavel, who spent most of this race with a damaged race car and has found himself in the 4th place position with a healthy race car. We thought that he might have had one of the faster cars on the racetrack, given the fact that he was fast even with damage. Now we're seeing what that car can do. And then Jason Hounshell, who has spent this race in a myriad of positions, now finds himself in the 5th place position on the lead lap, going to the inside of the 12, or at least trying to.
We haven't really yet seen the 14, the 12, or the 00 out in front. They've been up as high as second position, but they've never really been up there dominating, leading this race. And I go back to what I said about what Michael McDowell was able to pull off this past Sunday. As long as you're up there in the vicinity, you don't know what's going to happen up ahead of you. You might be able to sneak through and pull off a miracle win. That's what rookie Cooper Johnson, rookie Jason Hounshell are doing right now. Ryan Gavel making his first start. Could he end up winning in his G-Force debut?
The only lap that you need to lead is the last one, and they're coming through to take, I believe, 7 laps to go this time by, maybe 8 laps to go. They are trying their hardest, the teammates are, to keep the other 3 behind them. Now you got a lap car in the mix too, and that's going to be the 42 of Cairo, trying to spoil the fun for these lead lap cars. Does he play a factor in this race? Does he try to get to the front of the field, maybe get a lap back, and hopefully get back on the lead lap? We'll have to find out.
And if he's going to push someone, where does his alliance lie is the question. Right now, he seems to be trying to help Hounshell on the top side.
He's got Hounshell linked up, the 2 green cars trying to get around the neon greens up at the top, but they get washed up, and they try to hold on to it, and they somehow do on the exit of turn 4 to the lead. Goes to the 3 of Morse, leads the lap, got the 14 of Johnson behind, and here comes the 12 of Gavel to the inside with them.
It's going to be 6 laps to go here at Daytona. 194 laps have led to this. It's Morse Jr., the defending champion. John Whitendorf in the 33, his teammate. Then you got rookies and Johnson and Hounshell. Debuting driver Ryan Gavel and possibly the X Factor, another rookie in the 42 of Bo Caro, who would love to see a caution come out here to get himself into the hunt to get the free pass. But right now, top side, it's Morse. Bottom side, it's Johnson. They've got drafting partners off of 4.
5 laps to go, coming to at Daytona on the inside. You've got the 14 Johnson trying to make a move, but washed up the racetrack, almost got into the 33, 5 laps to go. So, if you have anything left, you use it now. We're coming up to a lap car. Will that play a factor? As now on the inside, the 14 is all by his lonesome. Can't find anybody, Ken Johnson. To the outside goes Gavel, trying to get back to the teammates as they check out around the lap machine of Guerri.
Neri is out of fast repairs. That car is off the pace despite getting the lucky dog under the last caution. This will drop him at least back to the 9th position as he's just trying to ride out this 500. Right now, though, big gap between the 2 teammates and 3rd place Ryan Gavel. That might not necessarily be a good thing. Whitendorf's going to have to throw a block as the 12's got a good run out of 4.
Here comes Gavel to the inside as they hit the stripe 4 laps to go. Look at the run that Gavel's got. He passes the 33. He's now alongside of the 3. Can he get the lead going into turn 1? Yes, he does, only by a little bit, but on the outside, can they have anything? No. Move Ryan Gavel to the lead of the race. I believe this is the first time we've seen the 12 car leading the race.
And he passed 2 cars by himself. That is what these cars are capable of doing, the power that they've got underneath them. Now Ryan Gavel going to have to look in the rearview mirror because the teammates are still lined up nose to tail of Morse Jr. and John Whitendorf. Look at the second line. You got Jason Hounshell. He's got Bo Caro with him, as well as Johnson there and Cooper Johnson and the 14 car. They're trying to make something happen in the second groove.
3 laps to go. When they hit the stripe, it's going to be the 3 and the 33. Still trying to find a way to get around the leader of Gavel. Gavel to the outside, to the inside. He's going to play defense more or less throughout the rest of the race. He's going to be mirror driving the rest of these last 3 laps of the race. But that car that was damaged earlier on the race has found himself the fastest on the racetrack as he gets loose out of 2. Up into the... Oh, goodness gracious. He hit the 00, but he saved it. Going down into turn number 3 to the inside. Morse to the lead.
As he had to recover it, did Gavel. That'll open the door for the momentum of the 3 of Morse Jr. and the 33 of Whitendorf. Now they're going to go back to the point. 2 laps to go. Remember, if we make it back to the white, we go to the checkered. If we can't make it back to the white and the caution comes out, we do have 1 green-white checkered overtime attempt. Morse now jumps and leaves his teammate. He goes up to the 12 with Gavel, trying to leave the 2 of them side by side for second place.
And now the Johnson's coming in the 14. I don't know who he's going to partner with. Nobody right now. He's running in the middle of those 2 now. Goes up and joins Gavel, pushing him down the back straightaway, trying to get around the 33. The 2 of them combined. 12 has gotten in front. Gavel to the inside, trying to find a momentum. And to the inside goes Gavel again, lead of the race, coming down to the white flag.
Sometimes you let your spotter clear you, sometimes you clear yourself. That's what Gavel did as soon as he got around the 33, dove into the inside of Morse, and he's going to lead them to the white flag. We're racing the checkers here in the Vintage 500. It's Gavel, Whitendorf, Morse, Houndshell. Who's going to win it here at Daytona?
Do you use your bumper? Do you try to get him out of the way? There are no teammates anymore. Does Weidendorf try to get around the 12 using any means necessary? He's got a bit of a gap between him and Morse. Down the back straightaway. Does he take the inside? He does take the inside. They're still pushing.
That lane is legal. Here we go.
3 wide for second.
Here comes Houndshell up to the top side. Morse goes low. 3 wide into 3. They're wrecking in the back. It's Morse and Gavel still side by side. What does Weidendorf do as Gavel gets put into the wall? Morse is spinning. Weidendorf is spinning. They're wrecking down to the start-finish line. Who gets to the stripe first?
Nobody's gotten there. They're all spun around and through the
Johnson. Cooper Johnson.
Johnson somehow gets through it all.
He was wrecked over in turn 4, was Cooper Johnson. And despite the fact of that, everyone in the top 3 wrecked coming to the start-finish line. Johnson was able to pass them all, and a rookie is going to win the season opener of Season 2 of the Vintage Cup Series.
Have you ever? I don't think I've ever seen a race come down with everybody wrecking, nobody crossing the start-finish line, and then someone who wrecked in turn 4 coming through to win the race, and Blaine Atkin somehow got second out of that.
Jake Houndshell, who had to serve a pass-through penalty under that last run, he's going to snipe 3rd.
What an incredible finish! The leader that was coming out of 4, Morse finishes 3rd place.
Okay, we gotta go back.
7th place.
We got so much to look at here. We're gonna first look at the incident that involved our race winner, Cooper Johnson. I think Houndshell gets up into the wall in the 00. He then, he slides up the track, gets hit from behind by the 42, and look at Johnson. He's up hard into the wall, still manages to keep that thing straight, so he doesn't know what's going to be happening up ahead of him as he keeps that thing in the throttle, and credit to him for doing that because he was able to slice his way through all these other drivers of Gavel, Weitendorf, and Morse, who could not get their cars refired before getting to the start-finish line.
I don't think I have ever seen a race come down to this, and I've thought for sure that at least the 3 of Morse had enough momentum to carry him over the line, but that car, in a violent flat spin around the front straightaway, just couldn't have the momentum, and at the end of everything, I don't think he was trying to get into gear. You could see him frantically trying to put the car into gear and get it turned around, but you can't turn around very fast. You're on grass with slick tires. There's no way you're making that turn. I don't think there was anybody who could have ever predicted something like this would happen.
This has to be one of the strangest onboards we have ever taken. We are going to go on board with a wrecked race car. This is Cooper Johnson running at the time in the 5th position. There's where he gets spun. Here he goes up into the wall. Now watch everything that transpires ahead of him. The wreck is taking place between Gavel, Weitendorf, and Morse. First car he's going to pass is going to be to the left. There's Gavel. Look down to the left side. There's the 33. There is the 3. Nothing but clean racetrack ahead, and he's going to get to the start-finish line. I mean, you can't script something like that. We didn't have a clue who was going to win this race off of turn 4, but I think we can easily guarantee when we saw the 00 and the 14 both get wrecked over in turn 4, we had written them off the list of competitors to take this checkered flag.
The thing was that I thought that the 14 of Johnson had spun completely around. What saved him was that he was able to bounce off the wall and continue going. Everyone else had to recover a spin. So he was able to just coast his way through. Now, he was flat on the floor. He had to get to the start-finish line first. But Johnson, a never give up attitude, he saved the race car and then was able to win the race at the most interesting circumstances. I don't think that this has ever happened.
And how about the fact, too, for Country Roads Motorsports, you have two drivers with a lot of experience coming into this, Hank Steinmiller and Ryan Lutz. They bring on rookie teammate Cooper Johnson. We had Lutz out of the race early in 14th. Steinmiller had a tough day, but he was able to get 13th, last car to be running. It's the rookie out of the team that takes the checkered flag for them in the first race of the season.
Amazing start to his season as well. Cooper Johnson, what did we say? You gotta do what you gotta do, and he did it. He was able to save it, prove himself that he can save a car that looks like it's unsavable, and then go on to never give up, go across the line, even though that you don't think that you're gonna win the race. And he somehow ends up winning the race. He's made a statement, not only within the team, but in the entire series. I'm here to stay, and I'm going to be a factor for the entire season. You can bet that I'm going to be in the fight for the championship.
Well, Cooper Johnson, what a way to get his season started in his first race in the G-Force Vintage Cup Series with the 87 cars. Boy, he showed that he was able to take to this type of race car like a duck takes to water, and right place, right time to capture this checkered flag as now we enter into our post-race wind down. And we've given our opinions of what went down. Let's find out what the drivers thought. Let's kick things off with our third place finisher, Jake Hounshell. Hey, Jake, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRN studios. You got us?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Man, it took us 200 laps to get to this point, but what a wild finish. And we saw you have to come down pit road there on that last green flag run to serve a pass-through. Next thing we know, you're crossing the line for third place, but we saw your car was strong. Even when you were battling to stay on the lead lap, you were able to keep the race leaders at bay. If you'd been able to be up there with those leaders off of turn 4, was this 0-2 going to be the one in victory lane?
It definitely would have been. I think this car is so much fun to drive. The track is so much fun to drive, and I was hoping that I was going to be back up there. I was hoping I could get a late caution because after I served that pass through. But as rough as they were driving, I was hoping that was going to happen. But it just wasn't. It wasn't like it was going to happen.
You know, we saw kind of 3 different segments of this race. We saw in the first half quite a number of yellows coming out, a lot of drivers having to kind of figure out, do I want to use my faster pair now? Do I want to save it for the second half of the race? But then we went into that long green flag stint and then finished it out with a couple of late cautions. How difficult was it to be able to strategize as well? Because not only did you have to kind of figure out when you wanted to use your 2 faster pairs, but you were only given 8 sets of tires as well, and pit road was open to you quite a number of times in that first half.
The strategy always plays a big part for sure. I was lucky where I didn't have to use my 2 faster pairs, but I chose to use them later on in the race, just because it was that rough out there. But I think I still had like maybe 2 sets of tires left or something, and the strategy was working okay. I just couldn't get the penalties down.
Now, we've seen all race long that these cars were a bear to drive. Your arms have to be just on fire right now. How tough was it to wheel these cars around 200 miles an hour, lap after lap, in traffic, with all the bumps in the racetrack? Tell us from your perspective as a driver, was that the hardest part about this race, keeping the cars going straight?
They definitely are hard to handle, but that's what makes them so much fun. I mean, they don't drive like any other car on the circuit, in iRacing, so it's just, they're unique, they're challenging, and that's why I love it. I mean, it was tough. My arms are definitely sore, but it's all worth it.
Well, Jake, congratulations on a great start to the season. Nonetheless, third place. You guys get to pack it up and head to Rockingham for next week's race. But, great start to your year nonetheless. And I'm certain we're going to be seeing this 0-2 in victory lane at some point during the course of this season, maybe as soon as next week. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Thanks, guys. I want to thank you guys, FRN, for putting this stream on. Your broadcast is just top notch. It's really great. It's fun to watch, fun to go back and watch. To all my friends that are watching, hope you guys had a good time watching. I want to give a shout out to my brother too. He almost pulled that win off. Like, I went back and watched a replay, and it was really, really exciting. So he's gonna get up there shortly. He's got some good tracks coming up, so hopefully he'll be sitting pretty next week.
Well, after 200 laps, Jay Cownshell brings his own P3 here tonight in the Vintage 500, presented by Richmar Florist. Congratulations, Jake. We look forward to seeing what you can do next week. Hopefully, we'll talk to you next week, maybe in Victory Lane at Rockingham.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks.
And let's now see if we can get a word with our second place finisher, Blaine Atkin. Hey, Blaine, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir, I do.
Man, we were talking all race long about how it looked like you guys were struggling with these race cars, trying to keep them straight. But one thing that I noticed you were able to do that nobody else seemed to be able to catch on with, and that was your ability to be able to push drivers to the front. We saw you do it with the 2 earlier on. You did it with the 3. You did it with the 33. What was it you were able to figure out that allowed you to be able to be that close to push a driver when everybody, including yourself, are trying to hang on to these things?
Well, the big thing I had to learn from last season was tire conserving, and as long as you conserved your tires, you were able to get in there harder and get it off harder, and that's what I was doing to help push them to the front there.
You know, Blaine, obviously, we know you had a very fast race car. It seemed like whoever you worked with made forward progress to the front. We saw you out in front for quite a number of laps as well, but we saw you get hit with that late penalty having to come down pit road for a pass-through. If that hadn't happened, we see you finished in second place here, even with the pass-through. How do you think you would have been able to do there, being up in that lead pack, battling for the win?
I think for sure if we were up there, we would have had a good shot at winning, but unfortunate events happened between me and the O2 and then me hitting the wall there and coming down the track. So I don't really know. I think we could have had a good shot at winning there.
You definitely had a fast car tonight, but given all the circumstances that happened, a second place finish is astounding from our point of view. Now, for you, how does this set up the rest of the season going forward? It's a long season, and today is kind of like the precursor and the overall feel of how the rest of the season might go for you. Are you excited for the rest of the season, and what are some of your goals for the season?
Well, I'm really excited for the season for sure. My goals is to go out there and try to win all the short tracks. I don't know about the mile and a half, but I'm sure that's freaking crap try on them.
Well, Blaine, we wish you luck on that. We know you're fast when it comes to those short tracks, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to be probably seeing you up at the front there at these mile and a halves as well. Put on a great show here today at Daytona. Congratulations on a second place run. We're going to give you the opportunity now to shout out some sponsors and do some thank yous.
Oh, yeah, I want to, first of all, thank Randy at Smart Way for letting me have this opportunity to race on his team on here on iRacing. And I also want to thank Curb Appeal, SP Carburetors, for what all they do in real life for me.
Well, that's Blaine Atkin. He brings the 44 home P2 to start out the season here at Daytona. Once again, congratulations on a great run there, Blaine. We look forward to talking to you in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
Well, he was 5th when they headed into turn 3. He was the race winner when he crossed the start-finish line. Down to victory lane we go to talk with rookie Cooper Johnson. Hey, Cooper, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Oh, 100%, guys. I got you.
Man, we were up here watching everything go down, and we could not believe what we were seeing there from turn 3 over to the start-finish line. You were wrecked over there in the final couple of corners. You come across the start-finish line to kick off the season with a win. What were the range of emotions you were feeling between the wreck and when you finally found out you'd won this thing?
It's funny because right when we went through 3 and 4, I 100% thought I was out of it. I thought it was either going to be John or Chris or any of those guys that was up front, or maybe even Blaine. And I was like, man, I'm fine with a top 5, considering how much of a cluster this entire race has been with how many wrecks there were from the very start to the very end. I'm like, I'm fine with the top 5. And then when I heard that they all wrecked, and then I started going by them, and I realized they were all wrecked in the infield. Oh my God, I almost jumped out of my seat. I was so excited. I cannot believe that I just won this race. Before anything, I want to thank Anthony Guarneri. He's the reason why I'm even in this league today. He's the one who invited me and gave me the opportunity to even be here. So before anything else, I want to thank him. But my God, this race was unbelievably fun.
You know, Cooper, we saw during the G-Force Grand National Series how you were a contender week after week after week, but this is the first time under the G-Force banner we saw you in the 87 cars. We didn't see you run the 87 cars back in Season 1. We were wondering about drivers that had made their way over from the Grand National Series to drive these cars in the Cup Series, how they would be able to adapt. Now, obviously, you had a lot of long green flag runs to be able to get used to how the car handled in traffic and everything, but starting this race, you got the opportunity to get some experience in the duels as well, but with starting this race, how much prior experience had you had with the 87 cars coming into this 200 lapper?
Well, I was one of the few people that the instant the 87 cars came out, I was really excited for them. They're extremely, extremely challenging. And from the day they came out, I tried to run them as much as I can. I haven't ran them much since they first came out. And then once, I heard that we were going back to the 87 cars, I tried to get as much practice as I could, and at the end of the day, no matter how much practice you get in these things, it's always going to be difficult. You can get 1,000 hours in these cars and you're still going to find yourself struggling at certain points just because of how tough these things are. These things are so tiring. After 200 laps in this thing, I am wore out. I know the instant that this is all over, I'm going to go crash and I'm going to sleep for like 12 hours because this was so tiring.
They certainly have a mind of their own. We were watching the entire race. It seemed like everyone would figure out how they operate, and then all of a sudden one of them would just say, nope, I want to do this now. But welcome to the G-Force 87 series. You have won the Vintage 500. Does this set up the rest of the season going forward for you? I know that it's going to be on a high note. Do you think that you can make yourself a challenge for these other drivers? Some of these drivers that are veterans in the series, are you going for that championship given what we saw today? Because you definitely have the skill to do it.
I obviously hope. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, there's a lot of great talent in this thing. Chris is unbelievable in these cars. I know Gerald is amazing. John, Hank, my team owner, is really good in these things, and he caused it up in a wreck a couple of times early on the race. So I know that he's going to be in the fight there towards the end of the season, but I hope. I mean, I know I'm vibing for the Rookie of the Year, and I think I have a really good chance at winning Rookie of the Year. But if things continue to go the way I have, then who knows? Maybe I might be fighting for a championship. That's obviously the ultimate goal is to win the title at the end of the year. But there's a lot of other tracks I'm excited for, so I feel like I have a good shot. I just need things to go my way, just the way it did today.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. Cooper Johnson, a rookie, wins the Daytona 500 here tonight in the season opener. Congratulations, Cooper. I know you did some thank yous already, but we're going to let you do any other thank yous you'd like to, as well as any sponsors you'd like to shout out.
Obviously, I want to, again, shout out Anthony, reason why I'm here. Shout out Hank, my team owner, even though he's been constantly threatening to fire me and telling me that he might replace me with somebody else. But hopefully this shows him that I should stick around on his team. I want to thank you guys, obviously, for putting on an amazing broadcast. You guys are always great. I always go back and listen to you guys, and you guys are really, really professional. And so appreciate you guys. And I got no one else to thank except for myself.
Well, Cooper, congratulations on a job well done. We say at Daytona, right place, right time, and you exemplified that here tonight, winning in the Daytona 500. Go get yourself some rest. Enjoy this win. Hopefully we'll talk to you next week at Rockingham.
Sounds good, boys. Thank you very much.
And this is why we say, folks, when it comes to a super speedway, you never know who's going to win, even as soon as turn 4 on the final lap. I mean, Anthony, I'm with you. I thought Christopher Morse Jr. had won this race. I thought he was going to slide through the grass across the start-finish line and win, based on the fact the rest of the competition had either wrecked with him off of turn 4 or had wrecked over in turn 3. I did not have any other driver pegged to be able to win this race. Maybe Blaine Akin and Jake Hounshell, even though they were a long ways back. But I still, going back, I can't comprehend what I saw in that replay of how Cooper Johnson pounded the outside wall, still kept the thing going, and was the one to cross the start-finish line ahead of those other 3 drivers of Gavel, Morse, and Whitendorf that had wrecked off the final corner.
Daytona continues to surprise us. This was... I've been trying to think back at a time that something like this has happened, and I seriously cannot picture something like this that has ever happened. Maybe if you go back to the 1979 Daytona 500, that might be the closest example that we're going to get. But as far as everyone, there are 5 cars, final turn, I don't think that outside of maybe that one example that this was ever on anybody's radar, certainly not within an iRacing race. And the fact that, again, Cooper Johnson able to hold on to that car, fantastic piece of driving, able to keep the wheel going where he needed it to, and ultimately just the never give up attitude. He could have very easily not put the power back into the car and just coasted down to the start finish line, but he gunned it. He felt something and he went for it and he got the win. Kudos to Blaine Atkin and Jake Hounshaw coming from so far back as well, trying to get back up to the lead of the race. It's incredible that they were able to finish second and third. And Seth, I don't know about you, but this race has had a lot of ups in it, and I'm excited for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, as we know, Daytona, everybody wants to win the 500. It's the tone setter, as you said, for the rest of the season. But there's some tough tracks that are coming up for these guys in the upcoming weeks. Next week, we're going to the tire shredder, the tire killer of Rockingham. The next week, we go to Richmond. Blaine Atkin has a Grand National Series win at Richmond. He'd love to be able to see if he could get a cup win there. We go to Atlanta. There's another tire killer. We go to Darlington. There's another tire killer. I mean, these drivers, we saw them loose into the corners here at Daytona carrying the speeds they were carrying. They're going to have to deal with loose race cars when we go to those tracks, and those tracks are definitely all about tire conservation, and I think probably that right rear is what we're going to be talking about in those upcoming weeks.
Oh, for sure, especially at Darlington. You add how thin Darlington's usable racetrack is, because Darlington is a wide track, but the way the banking is, you only have a little bit that you can play with, especially in turns 3 and 4, with how tight turns 3 and 4 are. So it's going to be fun watching these drivers get around Darlington. I can't wait for Richmond. Of course, that's my home track, so I love watching races at Richmond. This season has got such a stacked lineup, and these cars are a perfect combo to put on some of these racetracks, and I am so excited to watch. And this is a perfect way to cap off a perfect speed weeks at Daytona. It started with the Roar 24 in the real world, and then it's capped off with the Vintage 87 series, taking it to the circuit, and it was the perfect send-off for our speed weeks at Daytona.
200 laps to get to where we were, and even at that point, it, in all honesty, came down to the final 50 feet or so as to who was going to end up winning this race. But yeah, you're right. What a tremendous race here to kick off the season, and it's a rookie in Cooper Johnson winning the Vintage 500 presented by Rich Mar Flores. But what a great one, and we look forward to continuing on this season, an extended season from what it was back in Season 1, so the emphasis on consistency going to be there even more so, and we'll see if Cooper Johnson can carry this momentum into the North Carolina 200 next week at Rockingham Raceway. But Anthony, a great night here, as you said, to cap off a great week here for Speed Weeks and this 500 weekend for the G-Force Vintage Cup Series, and I appreciate you being with me every lap of the way.
It was extremely fun race, and I'm glad that I got to call it with you. These races are going to be so much fun, and I cannot wait for the rest of the season.
Next week, we're going to be back at the normal starting time, 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday evening, so be sure to tune in as we will be bringing you race number 2 of Season 2 of the G-Force Vintage Cup Series live from Rockingham Raceway. For Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.